It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul and Richard are here. We have lots to talk about. Paul's watched every video from the Microsoft Build Conference last week. He watched the Apple conference videos 3 times. And there's some big news for Xbox. Boy, and the biggest Patch Tuesday ever. Lots to talk about next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 987, recorded Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. SelfLoathing.md. It's time for Windows Weekly. Hello, all you winners and dozers. Welcome. This is the show we talk about the latest news from Microsoft with these guys right here. Paul Thurrott with his new glasses. I like those spectacles you're wearing. They have cameras and music in them.
You know, I used to be able to dunk a basketball, but I got to tell you, the thing I hate the most about getting old is I can't see anything anymore, and I'm really tired of it. It's annoying. I'm looking at the screw on the bottom of a laptop, and I'm like, is that a Torx screw or a Phillips? I don't know.
Oh, that's ridiculous. No one should be able to see that. That's too small.
It's the mechanical equivalent of 1-point type.
Yeah. There. Richard Campbell, who is also spectacle clad from, you're in Copenhagen again, yes?
Still in Copenhagen, haven't left. It's 2 weeks. They're very nice.
Podcasts besides Windows Weekly include Run as Radio and .NET Rocks. You'll find those at runasradio.com.
Paul Thurrott. Asylum over there? What are you doing?
I know. What is it? Can you hear it?
No. I mean, no. I meant.
Copenhagen. Yeah,
still an asylum in Copenhagen.
Just trying to Dane it up.
You're staying in the Estonian embassy.
I've managed to do 4 conferences in 2 weeks.
Caramba. But you know what? Copenhagen's great.
Copenhagen is great.
And actually, our IT guy Russell, who was visiting Copenhagen same time as you last week, then went to Grindelwald, which sounds like something out of Harry Potter, but actually is it
was just Russell's birthday, wasn't it?
It may be. Anyway, he loved Grindelwald. He said, I spent too much time in Copenhagen. This is great.
I mean, Copenhagen is the big city.
It's
the
rest
city. Of Denmark is much smaller.
I have been to Aarhus.
Aarhus?
Which I think is where Legoland is.
I thought Legoland was in Pennsylvania.
Well, the original Legoland was invented in Lego's a Danish invention. So the original,
because they like sharp things that hurt your feet when you walk in the night. Yeah, smart.
It was a little scary. I went with my son, who was about 9 or 10 at the time, and they had a giant robot hand that was a ride. So you'd sit in the seats. The hand was that big. There's 3 people sitting in the hand, and before you get in, you can program it to whatever movements it's going to do with you inside the hand. And I said to my 9-year-old, be nice, be gentle. And no, he did not. It was really Henry's Revenge was, that was so much fun. Actually, I really enjoyed it. It was like, wow. Enough of that frivolity. Microsoft's Patch Tuesday was yesterday.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk. Oh, wait, are we? Is that the first thing?
We could talk about that later, but it was a big one.
I'm like, wait,
my
what happened?
suspicion is it has something to do with Mythos.
Your suspicion is correct.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yesterday, your home version, my first Mythos came out called Fable.
My first Mythos. Mythos for dummies.
Mythos for dummies. And I've been playing with it. I got up in the middle of the night to play with it some more because I have limited time. We all do. With
phrasing, Leo, phrasing. So I don't like how you included us on that. But
okay. And then there was Build last weekend. Did you both you didn't go to Build, but you watched all the sessions probably, right? You don't have to go anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if it was in Seattle, I might have gone.
San Francisco, you don't like us down here?
No, it's not that. It's just that there are so many people who live there, and it just would have made more sense for me. But I didn't go. But I can understand now that it's over why they were pushing for me to go, because I've been going, but this year it was kind of a more of a limited capacity or whatever. I mean, they did invite me.
Yeah, it was basically invite only.
Yeah. But but there was a lot of Windows news and Surface news, like we talked about last week. So, that was interesting. But of course, and then this week was WWDC, or still is WWDC. And between the two, and Google I/O as well, there's been this just crazy amount of not just the developer stuff, which is normal, right? But also, AI agents and vibe coding and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that is kind of, I don't know, I've been obsessing over a little bit, I guess, but it will definitely be part of the show in a big way too. But I'll just start off with the build stuff, because after the show ended last week, I pulled down a bunch of session videos to watch. And I probably watched all of them. Actually, I watched a couple of them twice. And
not just the keynotes, though.
No, I mean like actual session videos. There's a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm not going to get to all of it today, nor did I write about all of it over the weekend, but I did write about some of it. The first thing I wanted to mention was I think it was last week or the week before, but I had asked Richard, and figure if anyone knew, it would be him, but whether he had heard of that reactor tool or reactor, whatever it is, not really a tool, but I don't know. It's like an add-on for the Windows app SDK, essentially, C#, whatever, that lets you program WinUI apps in a reactive type model, like a declarative model, without XAML, right? Now, optionally. I mean, obviously you can still use XAML. I didn't know what it was at the time. I don't think anyone really did, but there was a Chris Anderson session at Build on this topic, which I've actually watched that one 4 times, which is fascinating to me. And it's interesting to see people who matter paying attention to Windows App SDK, or as we're just going to call it, I guess, WinUI, because it matters, and it's even calling it like a B team doesn't even describe how like out in the woods this thing has been. And there have been all these little things, like last fall we heard a bunch of stuff like, oh yeah, we're going to listen to people and get stuff going. And then the person who was running that left, and nothing seems to happen with it. So I was happy to see Chris Anderson, but I don't remember if I talked about this as part of the show, but they had announced that vibe coding tool, which is a CLI that is built on a CLI, which allows you to describe the app that you want, and it creates a WinUI app, a Windows app SDK app. And I like this style of thing. Apple's doing the same thing, and actually Google is too, by the way, where you essentially, not essentially, literally using plugins, which are just kind of like markdown README files that describe, what the thing is going to do, ground the information backlog that this thing has in the documentation for the language and framework and all that stuff, and not on the web. And it's not going to go out to Stack Overflow and confuse WPF code or whatever. And my experience with that has been very positive. The Microsoft vibe coding stuff is, like I said, command line based, but it creates a Visual Studio project, so you can pull it into the GUI and do all the debugging and everything else you want to do with that. And that's great. But it's not like what I would call a consumer feature, right? I mean, no normal human being is ever going to download these CLIs using Winget and, figure out how all this stuff gets together. But having spent the time to do that, you can see where it's going to get better. I was actually really impressed by that. So that's kind of interesting. But I also, in going through all the sessions that I went over, which fall into, a couple of different categories, I guess. There were, Microsoft talked about the Windows app development stuff, which is what I just mentioned, or at least some of it. Just kind of general productivity for developer type things, which they've been talking about for years. We've done this at various builds where they've announced things like the dev environment, the premise to WSL, blah, 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 whatever. And there was a lot more of that. So that's the type of thing for me that from Microsoft seems to happen one time and then drop off the face of the earth. And it's kind of nice to see them going at that. But obviously, and this is super obvious, you just have to know, you have to be awake to understand this. The big focus at this show was agentic AI, which Microsoft has been talking about for 2 years, but is finally now delivering in meaningful ways. Not just for developers, but I would say developers are always the tip of the spear, right? So you see a lot of that there. And this notion of using agentic AI to aid in software development is, that's the beginning of this stuff, right? And then productivity will kind of move on from there. And there was a lot of that, as you would expect. And we, like I said, not surprising. But in going through this, it wasn't so much that there was like this theme that kind of emerged per se, but I do feel like I'm gaining an understanding of why Microsoft is making a public point of improving Windows 11 this year, right? That I had sort of speculated in the past, like some giant enterprise customer or some group of enterprise customers must have come to them and said, guys, you got to stop screwing up Windows Update. Like, this is getting stupid. Like, this needs to be better. And I'm sure that was part of it. But actually, if you think about intent, right? What is Microsoft really doing in this case? And what is the overall strategy of the company in the same way that it used to be all about cloud computing, which didn't make a lot of sense for Windows, and then came into AI, which makes sense on some level for Windows, and now to agentic AI, which, this is their platform. So like Apple and Google, they're going to do these things they're going to do to make agents make sense on Windows. And I think this is actually why they're improving Windows, because that foundation has to actually work and make sense for anyone to even consider using or developing with agents on Windows, right? I mean, Windows itself has to be solid for this to work.
Can't be crashing while it's waiting for an agent to complete a task.
Right. So I think that is actually it. This is where the broader aim of Microsoft kind of aligns with the needs of the users of Windows, which is kind of a nice coincidence. And it kind of is a coincidence, but whatever, who cares? Like, we'll take it.
So are we getting to this place where it's like, Windows, we're making it better, but not for a good reason.
Yeah. Or I would say we're making it better, but not for you.
It's like, anyway.
We hear your complaints. We don't care.
Yeah.
But we're going to make a show of caring, and they are doing that too. So.
Yeah, and we really need to sell you more stuff. So we need a platform to sell it.
Yeah. The other thing, and this is tied to that, is we talk about AI in general, LLMs up in the cloud, how expensive all that is. This year has seen the move to usage-based payments or paying for that stuff, which has escalated the cost on the people using AI dramatically. But it's been, Microsoft, Google, whoever has been basically subsidizing this to date. And so we're starting to see that kind of true cost of AI. We have been talking about local AI as well for years, but also with the caveat that it's never going to be as good. And it's, the early stuff that Microsoft put into like Copilot plus PCs, for example, where you use like Paint to make a little stupid kid's drawing and it turns it into an image of some kind. It's like, it's okay. It's not as interesting or as good as the stuff you see up in the cloud, but it gets better over time, right? And so there are things like click to do or super resolution, which is kind of amazing. That you can take an image like a low resolution scan. You took up a photo like a million years ago and scale it up to 4K. It looks awesome. Like the local AI stuff is getting better. Copilot plus PC as a brand, I don't think has really resonated with anybody. There is no killer app for this functionality, which kind of makes it a hard sell. If you own one of these PCs and you run a normal, collection of whatever apps, especially if they're on the creator end, you may have some little benefits that are happening here and there, but you'll never know. And like, there's no gleam that pops up and says, hey, this is happening. This is awesome. Congratulations.
And this is before you get into like a DGX Spark or something, like actually having a high performance machine on your
Yes. So we probably talked about this a little last week. There are a lot of questions about what happens to Copilot plus PC because of this NVIDIA hardware, right? Microsoft is not saying. They did not promote Copilot plus PC as part of that announcement. They have since confirmed these things are Copilot plus PC. So for the short term, and maybe they're just saying this now because they don't want to reveal what they're going to do, they're still moving ahead with this brand. But
but it does sound like you're just expanding the definition of a Copilot PC.
Well, we'll see. I mean, look, I've often sort of believed and said that at some point this thing just disappears because all PCs are Copilot plus PCs, or the spec raises, and becomes, more stringent, and then you need better hardware. The same way
eventually every PC had a GPU of some kind. It may not have been good, but everybody had one.
Right. But the needs of local AI are such that Microsoft expanding the spec or removing it so that we can do those things with whatever resources we have on the device, like the CPU, GPU, or MPU, right, is the right thing to do. I think we talked about this last week. They've adapted or are adapting the Windows AI APIs to support that across some number of those APIs, where I think text-to-speech was one. I don't remember the list, but where these used to require an MPU of a certain, like a Copilot plus PC style, but now you can, I don't remember exactly, they're different for each API, but let's say in this case, you can do it against the CPU and or the GPU, and that opens it up to more people, right? Because there's a chicken and egg problem here too, right? There's a lot, that kind of goes into this. And, you know, I think we would have talked about Stevie Batish and his he did a nice appearance in the keynote. And
this time around.
And talked about this kind of slightly far out, you know, project where it's going to be like an Android AOSP based hardware and some, you know, OS in the cloud sort of a thing, or distributed OS, however you want to say that. They didn't say it that way, but whatever. So there's a lot going on, but again, you know, like the making Windows make sense for developers and making Windows maybe even the best place to be if you're doing anything related to AI obviously makes sense to whatever degree. Getting to a point where there is what we would have, you know, we've been calling hybrid AI makes sense. And hybrid AI, I think until this past week in my brain was you're running something local, SLMs. It's reaches some point where it can't do something, and then maybe there's a handoff through an orchestrator. And this is something you as the user would okay or configure, where it goes off to the cloud and the cloud does the thing. And then there's the opposite's true too. You could start something in the cloud. And again, this would be like an orchestrated based thing where it's like, you know, we can do this in the cloud, but you don't need our best model.
Yeah.
And we can see you have a local model that's perfectly acceptable. It'll save you money to do it. Let's just do it. That's free. This is the unmetered AI thing, right?
Yeah. Well, so, and you just so you could assess performance, right? Like the Copilot PC spec was what, 40 tops?
Yeah.
And a DGX Spark is 1,000 tops.
I know.
You know?
It was a big deal.
We had a tool.
Like, yeah. No, I know it's crazy. Like, but this is like that's the thing I just wrote today, which we're going to talk about much later in the show. But the speed at which AI improves and evolves, however you want to say that, is astonishing. We keep talking about that, but that's a great example of what that means in real world terms. We made this spec, and it was 40 tops, and that's some measure of performance on an MPU, local, you know, hardware accelerated AI workloads, whatever you want to call that. It is impressive that 2 years later, Snapdragon X2 doubles that. Yeah, 80. Essentially 80 or 85, right? Depending on the NPU. We have AMD and Intel NPUs that I think are in the 50, tops range, right? That exceed that initial spec. Nice. But then, like you said, like NVIDIA comes along and you're like, oh, this is just blowing this out of the water. Not that should surprise anybody. We already have GPUs, you know.
Yeah, and it's a $5,000 machine. Like,
yeah,
you can buy you could just drop $3,000 on an NVL 72. You know.
No, of course, but you have this. But now we've established this. Yeah, it's not a baseline. It's kind of the top of the line, but the spectrum of capabilities, the spectrum of, I don't know, performance or whatever you want to call that, has gotten so much broader now. You know, and so something's going to change. We don't know what that is because Microsoft has not said, but I am starting to think that hybrid AI, well, I'm starting to think this because they were sort of saying this. So for example, when you think about they introduced the term local AI agents. These are agents that run on your device against AI on your device. They also introduced something called sub-agents, which also I will say Apple used this term this week, and I'm sure Google talks about sub-agents. And then there's something I'm going to call hybrid agents, although I don't believe anyone's used this term, which are agents that can work with cloud and or local AI, depending on the situation, right? This is kind of a new level here, right? We have giant LLMs in the cloud that are kind of do everything models, like the stuff that OpenAI has been making, Anthropic and Microsoft's been trying to make. But we have specialized LLMs as well. They're really good at certain things. And then, of course, we have these local models that are specifically designed for very specific things. So there's more of a range, right? It's not just local cloud. It's like a range of capabilities on both ends. And then we have agents, which are the same thing. They're local and cloud, but there's also the ones that cross over. And so I think this makes that orchestrator thing I keep wanting to bring up all the more important. And that's the role that Windows can play, right? When you're a developer and you write to a Windows AI API 2 years ago, when we called it something different, the Copilot runtime or whatever the heck it was, you were specifically targeting a certain kind of chip, and it had to be there for this thing to work. And the way that these things are starting to work is the way they should have always worked, which is it just assesses what's on your computer and does the right thing. It's orchestration, right? And I think that like the NVIDIA models support, or the NVIDIA chips rather, support local models with up to 1 trillion parameters. It's like these numbers don't even make sense. It's like a data center that sits in your lap,
Yeah.
Hopefully doesn't burn a hole through your leg, but
I mean, we've been calling our smartphones the supercomputer you put in your pocket for a while, because it's true. Right?
Yep.
You just have that much compute these days. On the ComSci side of this, we've definitely had conversations now where it's like, as a piece of software matures, you get a version or two in.
Mm-hmm.
The constraints of the developed software mean the model can be simpler. So you can imagine, initial development on a project might use a cloud-based model. And I hate the term frontier, because please save.
Same. Right. We have, yes. Every 2 weeks there has to be a new term,
Oh, sure. Anything to make you spend more money.
Yep.
But once you get to a certain level of maturity where you know the architecture, you know the platforms you're depending on and so forth, the model just does not need to be that big. So I think we got to get better at pruning, at basically saying, hey, what don't I need in this to be able to be effective answering questions around this particular product? I have to wonder if we were not going to do a place where you'll literally have a tuning set, some kind of MCP or some kind of skill set that's specific to your application. So the model can look at that and go, oh, no, I can handle that. What do you need?
Yeah, this is So, okay, this ties into the thing I'm struggling to explain in a good way, but it's basically, think about a chat bot of the type we would have used over the past 2 to 3 years, where you get this interface where you type text in, and there's always like this drop down where you choose a model. And like people,
you're not qualified to select those models.
What are you doing? Like, that's a stupid thing to have.
Don't ask people questions they cannot answer.
Yeah, look, there are going to be issues with regards to like maybe the cost of it or whatever, where you might have to put up a prompt and say, hey, look, this thing will run best or only on this model, but it's going to be expensive compared to the other thing, which may be free or cheap or whatever. Like, there has to be that part of it, but this increasingly, again, I keep coming back to the start. It's really about orchestration, and orchestration at an incredible level, because it is what you just said, and it is the things I was talking about kind of combined, which is like you have all these different capabilities exposed to all these different models that are in different places that are good for certain things, and you as a person, you as the developer even, shouldn't be hand-picking the one thing. It should just do this for you. This is a thing that SDKs or frameworks or whatever you want to call them should do for developers. It's a thing that the operating system should do for apps and services and whatever else. It should be automatic. And I feel like that's what is happening.
Bound to be tools better at choosing than you. Like, the imp of the perverse in me invariably asks someone when they talk about how great the tool they're using right now, it's like, why is that one great? Like, why not the previous version? Like, what did you get? Was it just because it was 0.1 bigger? Like, is that why it's better? Like, what's the real measure of a superior or inferior model for a given problem?
You can do a point-in-time comparison of anything to anything easily. The problem with AI, again, is because it moves so quickly, the thing that was best at something 2 seconds ago may not be the best thing 4 seconds from now. And this is why you need this to happen dynamically on your behalf, because you could research this and do a lot of work and experiment and be like, yep, no, I found it. This is the best thing for this thing. But then a day goes by and now it is not. But you don't know because you've stopped thinking about it. And this is the role an operating system plays. Like, we don't manage memory manually. We don't,
this.
Right.
I'm going to push back on the moving super fast, because when I actually keep notes month over month on this, we're not actually changing any faster than anything else. These versions are not coming out that quickly. The really insidious thing that it supports your argument more than anything is, like, GPT-5 over the past few months has changed without changing the version number.
Right. Which is another,
that to me is far more concerning.
It's another crazy. Yes. So in that case, you could see that as a special case, but I think that's going to be the norm going forward in many cases too, right? That we have this thing, we can just make it better. We don't have to rev it. We don't have to eventually put it out to we are putting the old version of the same thing out to pasture, but we're going to, not just move on to the next thing and keep that thing there. We're going to actually replace it with something that's a little bit better, but is the same thing essentially. So it works with all the APIs and whatever developers are doing. This world is insane, and I think
it's just the companies that are insane.
Yes.
I also think there's two different audiences for this, because for instance, what Apple announced at WWDC on Monday they don't, you don't choose really much of the model. It just kind of does its thing. You can, I guess, and there may be some.
Well, so we're going to talk about that because Apple, Apple, like
but
Google,
for real, what I'm saying is for real people like normies, they just want it to work.
Right.
Right. That's what you're saying. But then there's people like me. I mean,
no,
I'm
but
sitting
you also
here looking at a drop-down menu that I can say I could choose from 200 different models.
No, but you shouldn't. I mean, but even that's silly. That's what.
No,
what
I should. No, you're wrong.
No, you shouldn't. This tells us how. No, this tells us how immature this is. This is like but when cars first arrived, you had to be a mechanic to own a vehicle. There was no way around it, and that's what this is. When the first cars, you had to manually shift the transmission into different gears with your arm or your foot or some combination of the two, because it couldn't do it itself, but then it could, and just like there are people who are like, oh no, I'm never going to give up a stick shift. You've obviously never sat in traffic on a hill, but and people who are like, I'm never going to give up driving a car because we're going to have self-driving cars, whatever. Like there's always people that cling to that stuff, but ultimately, like this is the role of, I keep calling it an orchestrator, but on the fly, like whatever it is you're asking it, no matter what it is you're doing, it should just do the best thing for that thing at that moment, no matter what it is. That's all. For everybody, for every audience, right?
Yeah. What mine does, for instance, right now I'm running a local model because it's free and cheap and private. And it's good for the kind of stuff I want to do. And then if I do coding, but see, I've set it up. Once a week, it does benchmarking. It goes out, it takes a look at new models, benchmarks, looks at what others are saying, and chooses models. And it has a delegator for a variety. So for images, as you say, you want to use Nano Banana. You don't want to use anything else. Well, but I want to be able to choose.
I mean, okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like the image one is interesting because I think it was Microsoft that said this when Microsoft AI had come out with some preliminary AI, MAI image, whatever, 1.0 something. And then there was a Flash version. They were talking about there being these kind of workflows within businesses where for the internal work, when you're making prototypes of some ad campaign or something that you're going to pass around via email, use the quick one where it's not going to be super good. But then when it's time to go to print, or, not print, but wherever you're going to production, you're going to use the really nice one because that will be photographic quality. And in these early days, we're going to just, if you're going to do that, you probably just choose that yourself. But, in the end, I mean, for this to make sense for everybody, I feel like this just has to happen. But we have to, we need that infrastructure for that to even make sense. Plus, God help us, it's got to slow down a little bit. Well,
and that's why Perplexity did so well early on, because that's all they did. They didn't make models. They just chose models, and they chose presumably appropriately. In fact, the default is best model, right?
Well, I mean, you can make, as a platform maker, like Microsoft, makes these features in Paint and Photos and where else in Windows that do things, right? And so they have individual small language models that are tuned specifically for whatever that task is, and whatever, you don't get a choice. So it's using that one thing, and it is not looking for anything better. It's just doing that one thing. That's all it does. And that's fine. I mean, that's fine for that kind of a task. But at some point, especially given the way costs are and everything, you almost need like it's essentially like a set of rules of sorts. Like if you get in the car and you get in Google Maps, you're going somewhere and you haven't touched any settings, it will probably do something where it saves you gas over getting you there the quickest, which is not what I want, but I can go into the settings and say, no. And the thing you're talking about, or in any AI where it's like, look, I want you to always go local first. And here are the conditions where you could go to the cloud, where maybe it's going to cost me money or something, or you're paying per month for something, so you should use that. But if it's going to exceed your monthly allotment or something, it should be able to tell you that somehow. And
I think our audience, and certainly me, are do-it-yourself type people who do want more control. I understand normal people don't care and shouldn't have to care. And you're right. An automatic transmission may do a better job of shifting up than a manual. Although an expert says, well, no, but I can do it better manually. I like the control, but I work with the agent to choose the models. I'm not doing it all by myself. And I set parameters because, for instance, I'm going to care about cost less than privacy. There's certain rules that I might tell.
That's what, right. Exactly. 100%.
That an orchestrator that doesn't know me won't necessarily know what to choose, or worse, will choose for profit.
The orchestrator is going to know you, Leo. That's I think that's
but it's going to choose.
right?
But I don't trust these big companies. They're going to always opt for their profit, not my interests, right? So
yeah, I mean by the way,
I want to defend myself.
No, I'm not.
I'm just saying I don't trust necessarily these big guys to tell me what to do.
I've never heard of anyone not trusting big tech, Leo. But let me just say, no. No, of course. I mean, that is part of the conversation. Right. If anything, it's even more important with AI in some ways than in other areas of technology. But that's part of it. I mean, that is part of it, right? If you're going to do something like run local open source AI semi-exclusively, but occasionally it can go do something with whatever model in the cloud, you're going to want to have some say over that, right? Obviously you don't want it to just do that, but that would be part of I think that's the point. I think it needs to become more sophisticated. I think we are going to get there.
I love it that I'm able to now use a local model, and it's but I have to know what it's going to be good for and not good for. I still have to have some.
So this is tied to the thing I want to talk about when we get to the AI section. But one of the sessions.
This isn't the AI section. I'm sorry.
No, I just did this up. I put this up front because I felt like this was a bigger deal than Patch Tuesday. But and this part of it is about Windows. But in watching those build videos, there's it's a session. I guess it's kind of an odd one because Scott Hanselman and Mark Vuzinovich are sitting in the audience for some reason, but it's sort of like an episode of their podcast, and it's the Scott and Mark learn ... whatever it is, and what they're basically the conclusion of this thing, I found myself in the awkward position of completely disagreeing with, to the point where I had to watch it again to be sure that and I understand what they're doing, but their point was people are vibe coding, and that's cute. It's great. It works good for little personal apps, these things we talk about, right? But if you're going to create apps that run at scale, that are going to be supported by an organization or a company or whatever it is, you need people who are experienced developers that have to know the code and blah, 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 and how things work. And anyone who hears that is going to nod their head and be like, yep, 100%. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, nope, you're wrong. You're right today. But
there are
tomorrow,
a lot of pros like Uncle Bob Martin who say, I don't look at the code anymore.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say that's actually ludicrous. I mean, it makes sense today. It is some guy in the comments of my site made this point. He says, he goes, I was pushing back against this like a lot of people, but then I suddenly realized this is like when they moved Exchange to the cloud. And all the Exchange guys were like, no. And I was like, yes. Right. Your company does not exist to host an email infrastructure. Why would you do that? That's insanity. But that's what the technology.
End of my AI hype keynote. Your job was not to write code. Your job was to solve problems for customers.
You said that a couple of weeks ago was the smartest thing I've ever heard in so many ways because it's so succinct and correct. And you get caught up in this thing. In the case of Exchange administrators, they got caught up in every second version, I'm going to do an upgrade. That's all they did. And they stopped learning, and they stopped, they're not making decisions that are the best decisions for the company anymore. They're making decisions that protect their job, and they see their job in a very different way.
It's the person that's got 10, 12 years in, all on the same stack. That's the one that's terrified. The old guys that have gone through 2 or 3 stack changes, like, well, here we go again.
Yeah.
And the new folks who are just trying to figure out their first stack go, I like this one better. Like, they don't have a problem.
Right.
But because of the window we're in, if you made that move to the cloud, that was your last big change. But
I had a guy ask me point blank, you mean to tell me that my last act as Exchange administrator is going to be to hand over the keys to this kingdom to Microsoft? And I was like, yeah, that is what I'm telling you. You needed to learn more about
we had
other
to get
things.
To that. We had to get to that point, right? I mean, it wasn't that way in the beginning.
Well, but there are some interesting parallels here, right? I mean, there was a lot of pushback from these people who are protecting their careers, which is completely understandable. But, I look at this like as a writer, I am not going to use AI to write but I also understand that most people cannot write well.
Right.
I know adults my age who can't spell correctly. They put social media posts that are embarrassing. And if there's a thing on their phone or their computer, whatever they're using, that can correct the spelling and grammar as they go, that's wonderful. Why would we not want that? Don't worry, that is called AI. If it, just it's going to help you. It makes sense to me. But then I look at this, like the vibe coding thing. I'm not a professional programmer, but I've spent years writing different versions of this one app, and it's been a lot of work, and there's been a lot of disappointment and a lot of trouble. And I have in the past month now recreated it probably almost a dozen times, different languages. I've done it on Apple now. And the last one I did, it took 12 minutes, and that app is better than anything I just spent 3 years working on. And I'm sorry, but the world has changed. Well, it's depressing. You know what? It's exciting.
It depends where you get your self-worth from. It's from writing good code, then maybe that's depressing. Yeah.
I mean, definitely when I'm writing a prompt to do some writing, I include the phrase "write like Paul Thurrott," but with extra snark.
Right. And it's like,
that's what Larry in our Discord is saying. It's not the code, it's the spec. The spec, aka maybe the prompt, is really the source of truth. The code is just an expression of that.
The thing Richard was talking, I will make available the SelfLoathing.md file that will help you write like Paul Thurrott. But yeah, I mean, look, your reaction to this stuff, one's reaction, not yours, but one's reaction is going to depend very heavily on where they are in life, how they value their self-worth, et cetera, et cetera. I keep making the point that there are these jobs that used to be things that we would look on today and be like, why did people ever do that? Wow. That's crazy. And people are, are going to look back and say, I'm sorry, you did what now? You wrote in a code that was compiled and linked, and then you ran it and it didn't work, and then you did it again, and you kept doing this until it worked, and that was your life? Like, what is that? Were you a slave or something? Like, what is that? Productivity. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. But
if you go back through the comments of the old Run As episodes as the cloud became a thing, there's guys out there lamenting racking and stacking servers. Like, that used to be my job. They're taking my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least you got some physical activity out of it. I mean,
we went from colos. Does anybody still do a colo? You'd have to really be
I used to, in mid 90s, I was one of 5 people who worked at a very small company. We had a colo and
but now,
somewhere in there, San Francisco, but it was literally like a Dell workstation running Windows NT.
Right.
And I had to fly out there sometimes and open this cage. Like at one point there was a guy who wouldn't poke a stick through the cage to reboot the thing. And I had to fly to California to be like, boop.
The fact that you could do that is probably a security flaw, but I'm not going to.
It was a different world. I'm not
nowadays, you trust Azure or you trust AWS. You don't do that. So this is how the world changes.
But that's how the world evolves.
And as you said, someday I won't care about model, but right now I'm running Fable to go through all my code, and I'm running Quen locally to tell me which battery to put in my APC. Both are appropriate to that job.
You are in no way a mainstream user of.
No, I agree.
I mean, obviously,
but I think power users will want that.
We need people like you who do this, right? I know we do. I mean that. I mean, we really do. But I just look at this stuff and I think, I get so much pushback against AI, and I was on the fence with this for years, I would say. But as I watch this evolve, I realize, we're spending time on the wrong things in some ways. And if you pay attention to these build sessions, which is this is where this originated, it's like there is kind of a, I feel like in the past, they would talk about things, right? Microsoft, they would say, we're going to have an SDK, when they would different names, that's going to do this thing. And you're like, okay. And they didn't ship anything for almost a year. And the thing they shipped was garbage. And it only worked on MPUs. It was stupid. And you had to use an experimental version of their Windows App SDK at the time. So you couldn't ship it in real code. And then another year went by. And then they just kept talking about things that weren't really happening. But I think the big difference that I see at Build this year, aside from, Windows being at the forefront again, near the forefront anyway, which I think is great, is that this stuff is real now, And Microsoft was very good about this. If you go through their developer blog posts, they're like, okay, this is the thing. Click here. This is where you can go get it. Oh, this is the thing. Oh, click here. This is over on GitHub. Oh, click here. This is, so a couple of the things are in some kind of early preview maybe or whatever. But for the vast majority of the stuff that they announced, the stuff they showed on stage, in the keynote or in various sessions, you can go do yourself. And I have done some of it. I've not done all of it. I completely screwed up one PC. They have like a Windows developer configuration thing, which is like a winget based configuration script essentially, and it just it put on a dark mode I can't get rid of and destroyed my terminal in ways I can't stand. And it's an all or nothing, like it just like makes this bulk change to your computer, which most of which I do not like, but whatever, it's real, like it's happening. And I think that's actually very exciting.
You ran the welcome to the jungle script, I think.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need this computer for anything, do you? What? Running a script. Wait,
not
what
going to
happened?
do anything else after this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's part of the evolution is that the people who were running their own Exchange server soon noticed they were spending a lot of time tweaking and fixing stuff. Right. And that's how the evolution
And it's not
happens.
the job you anticipated.
That's right.
And
That's
this
right.
is, by the
Same
way,
thing's
classic.
happening with AI right now. I think.
IT is classic, but it's in a kind of canary in the coal mine way, in that this is decades of reacting to problems and fixing them and never having the chance to kind of sit back, sigh, relax, and be proactive and work on the behalf of your users, or whatever you want to say that.
Preventative work.
Yeah. And I feel like if done correctly and viewed correctly, that's the role that AI can play in many areas. In this case, if it's software development, if it's going to happen in the IT space, whatever it is, personal productivity, however you want to say it, like it's, it's like Star Trek. It's like, we don't have money, everything is fine. People can pursue their interests. It's an interesting,
Someday.
I know this is literally how you're going to get to it, though. I mean, it really is. Unless they blow up the world with Terminator robots, but probably this is the better outcome. I don't know. It's interesting, but I see this. I see this rationale for improving Windows deeply buried in this, because they don't want to say that, right? Like it's such a better story to be like, hey, we improved this thing for you. We love you guys. You're our users. We care. And it's like, yeah, you don't care about us. This is about some Matrix thing where you're plugging us into a bag of hot water and pumping us for energy so you can do your own thing. And whatever, is like, that's a happy little world too, I guess, if you don't know you're in it. See, it like something that benefits both sides is a much better relationship than just normal enshirtification, which is just them doing terrible things to you because it's the thing that's better for them.
I don't know if Tuesday was a record yesterday, Patch Tuesday, but there were a lot of fixes. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul, the philosopher, Paul Thurrott.
Well, I don't know. I used to say AI wrote that.
I'm really getting good now at recognizing the syntax and writing styles of different models. So like I know when a model has stepped down to 4.8 or, because it's like, oh, I see you. I see you. Mm-hmm. Maybe that means I'm using it too much. I don't know. But there are they have styles. They definitely do. And most of them are very annoying, I must say. Let us talk about our sponsor for this segment of Windows Weekly, and then we'll get to the Patch Tuesday. I feel pretty good today. I had a great night's sleep, and I want to thank our sponsor, Helix Sleep, for that. Last year, it's been almost a year now, Lisa and I realized we needed a new mattress, and we did a lot of research, and we found Helix, and we are so happy we traded in our old mattress for a Helix Sleep mattress, because a good night's sleep, man, that sets you up for a great day. And it's summertime, right? So now's a great time to have a great mattress so that you don't have night sweats, right? You don't have back pain. There's no motion transfer. And you really don't want to settle for a mattress made overseas with low quality and questionable materials. But I can tell you, our Helix mattress and your Helix mattress was assembled, packaged, and shipped from Arizona within days of placing your order. It's brand new. They make it to order. And we also did the Helix Sleep quiz. I mean, we did a lot of research, and I was very glad we did. But one of the things I liked about the Helix site is this quiz, because you say what kinds of mattress you like, how you sleep, and then they match you with the perfect mattress based on those personal preferences and sleep needs. And it really works. It worked for us. In fact, there's a study. They did a Wesper sleep study. Helix measured participants' sleep performance after doing what we did, switching from their old mattress to a Helix mattress. And I have to say, the results of this study were exactly what I found personally, anecdotally, 82% of the participants in the study saw an increase in their deep sleep cycle. That's the really important one where the spinal fluid comes up and washes your brain. I know it sounds creepy, but it's an important thing for long-term health, for rest and everything. This deep sleep cycle, it's, half an hour to an hour a night. It's not a long thing, but more makes a big difference. Participants in this study, on average, achieved an additional 25 minutes of deep sleep per night. That's a lot. For me, that was a 100% increase. Participants on average achieved 39 more minutes of overall sleep per night. Now, there may be a good reason for that. They may just didn't want to get up in the morning because they're so comfy and cozy. And there's nothing like it. I got to tell you, when you go to bed, you get into those sheets. Every night I go, oh, this is good. For 10 years, Helix Sleep has consistently ranked at the top across the most independent, best review sites. Right? Tested and reviewed by experts like Forbes and Wired, and always ranked number one. Helix delivers the mattress to your door with free shipping in the U.S. And this helped us, kind of eased our mind. You can rest easy with seamless returns and exchanges. They call it their Happy with Helix guarantee. It's a risk-free, customer-first experience so that you will be completely satisfied with your new mattress. But they're not taking my mattress because I am completely satisfied. I love it. Go to helixsleep.com/windows. Right now, 20% off site-wide during summer savings. helixsleep.com/windows, 20% off site-wide, helixsleep.com/windows. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know you saw it here, which is important to us. Don't wait, though. The offer ends tomorrow, June 11th. Okay, so go right now, helixsleep.com/windows. Just pause the podcast and go. You don't want to miss out on this. Although, if you're listening after the sale ends, they always have great deals. Check them out. Great mattress. Really love it. helixsleep.com/windows. Thank you, Helix Sleep, for supporting Paul and Richard and Windows Weekly. Big Patch Tuesday yesterday. The patchiest of the Patch Tuesdays.
They should call it, yeah. We're going to be setting some records, I think, every month for a while. So to Leo's point, yes, this was a record number of fixed security vulnerabilities. 206, I think, was the number. Largest in its history.
Normally it's in like the teens.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. There were 3 zero-day vulnerabilities fixed, 33 critical security flaws, yada, 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 goes on and on. So, yeah, I suspect we're going to start getting reports on this from Microsoft. They did this last month, for example, but they did it after the release. So I haven't seen it for this one, but, this is a good thing for them to talk about and how they found these things, some combination of Mythos and their own, what's called the M-, yeah, internal model. So, I don't have details on. From the perspective of people using Windows, this is, if you watch Windows Weekly, I've priced these things 100 times, but none of this will be new information. It's just that it's all becoming publicly available. So the shared audio capability, if you have a compatible Bluetooth LE accessory, you can listen to the same audio from the PC via 2 or more devices, which is kind of cool. There's more information about MP usage in the task manager, so you can watch it do nothing in more detail. There's a multi-app camera support, so if you have a camera that supports it, you can use the same camera in multiple apps at the same time, which actually do all the time, so I'm not really sure what that means exactly.
It's all about better sharing interfaces so that, you can't have software hijack and take sole control.
Yeah, this is like when I do the hands-on Windows show, I have to. I'm on camera for the screen, the recording of me, I guess. But then I'm also recording the screen myself with OBS and a lot of stuff going on at the same time. But you don't want to. I do it sometimes, but you don't want to access the camera while you're using the camera. If that makes sense. But I guess that will become better or easier or whatever. I haven't seen this one yet, but. And actually, in the Windows 11 Field Guide, I have a workaround for this now. So if you don't have this, you can do this already. But there's a step now in the out-of-box experience during Windows setup. So when you first get a new PC or reset a PC, where you can actually choose a name for the user folder that it will use if you want. In other words, if you Like if I sign in with a Microsoft account, and my Microsoft account is paul@throt.net or whatever, it will create a user account folder and a user account folder of Paul, all lowercase, right? That under, C/user/Paul would be my thing. If I sign in with Throt at like hotmail.com or Throt at outlook.com or whatever, that folder becomes THUR. Just like what, So in that case, I could see like, no, I want that to be Paul or something. And why would you want to do that? Most people don't, but the people listening to this show, for example, like I do this all the time. Like I have scripts that rely on hard-coded paths, and if I sign in with in such a way that it's not the same user account name, that screws up the path. So it's kind of a nice thing people have been asking for. Although, like I said, you could work around it. And then, all the performance stuff we've been talking about, the app launches, user experience, shells like start menu search, et cetera, are using this new low latency profile that will basically, it just speeds up the CPU in that moment to make this thing happen more quickly. And then it just goes back to normal. So that's just something that should have always been there. That's for 24 and 25 H2. 26 H1 is in this sense is still a month behind. I talked about how in the Insider program is starting to catch up. So I think we're going to eventually be day and date on this stuff. But for now, we're a month behind. So they're getting the stuff we got elsewhere last month, like Xbox mode and that drop tray, rename and change, etc. AI on agents on the taskbar. Not that anyone's ever seen one except at Build, but that kind of stuff. So that was Patch Tuesday. So the biggest thing in the world from a security fix perspective, I think it's going to be beat next month and the month after that. But for now, a record. But for just everyday users, people who just install the update and go on with their lives, it's kind of a minor one, I guess, which is fine. It's good.
I thought we'd have hours on that.
No, I mean, what do you say about it? It's just like,
it's a fix. You got to do it. Yeah.
It's a lot of
Do you think this is from Mythos? Did Microsoft get access to Mythos?
Yeah, they did. Yes. So they haven't talked about it for this month, but last month they did say Mythos was part of it. They have their own model, M-. They're creating. M- in many ways is not a model, right? It's almost like an orchestra that uses different models, I guess.
It's a configuration kind of thing.
Yeah. So Mythos is part of that.
It's still in private preview and you can sign up for it. But apparently they were pushing to go to public preview like in the build time frame. It just didn't happen.
It just wasn't ready, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're going to get more disclosures on how they're finding these things and what they're doing about them. Microsoft, this is the thing. When Firefox started talking about this, I was like, man, there are going to be proprietary software companies that just do not want to broadcast this information, know. But I think it's smart to do this. And I think the climate is right for it because there's a general understanding that this is what's happening everywhere. So I think it's better to come clean about it than to be weird about it. But and with
Microsoft having M-, like it's also a marketing opportunity for your new tool set. Like, dude, go ahead.
That's right.
Why? In some ways, you don't want to be caught as the guy who wasn't doing it.
Yeah, M- is it's like a $12,000 a month subscription that what you get is a markdown file, or something like that. But hey, whatever works. So we'll see. I kind of predicted this right like immediately, but there's no doubt we're going to see this kind of thing just going. It's going to be. I mean, think about the size of these code bases. It's going to be a long time before they get on top of this.
Well, and I keep hearing things like this was not that it found a vulnerability. This is because it found the keys to the castle. Like when this if this 0 day was utilized, you get everything.
Right.
So it's a deep dive into software, and it's just a recognition that sooner or later the black hats are going to have these models, and they're going to use them the other way.
I'm 100% sure that's already happening too. Right. And this is going to be, Microsoft has at different times kind of talked when it was like a nation state was behind whatever electronic attack. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that too. So, yep. Yeah, we live in a fun little world here.
Yeah.
We'll see which one escalates quicker. Okay. And then someone a reader pointed me to this, Jesse, Dell sells a mouse, which, we would normally talk about.
Weird?
I have some Dell mices.
Yeah, but I bet you don't have this one because this one is a Windows Hello ESS Enhanced Sign-In Security compatible mouse, right? It has a fingerprint reader on it. as a fingerprint.
fingerprint. Oh,
Yeah, so
cool.
according to the original spec, which predates Copilot Plus PCs, but is a requirement of a Copilot Plus PC, Windows ESS is this kind of a security infrastructure in the computer that has to occur at build time. Like you can't add on to it, right? Your computer, usually these things will be laptops, but not always, but it will come with an ESS compatible facial recognition webcam and or fingerprint reader. But if it didn't, you can't add it later because there's, you kind of break that chain of trust, right? And I don't know exactly how they're doing this, but they announced at some point last year that they were going to allow external peripherals. I think this doesn't sound right, but for some reason in my brain, I think it's only fingerprint readers, but
it's all I've found so far is only fingerprint readers for ESS. Yeah.
I feel like they even announced it that way, but I don't remember that explicitly. But
I can understand why, because those IR cameras are complicated. Like, you really have to build them in. I mean, it would be nice if some monitor manufacturer built that camera in.
Yeah. Oh, 100. But again, like I don't, you could still, because there's a cable, you could put something in the chain that would break this. Look, they figured something out here. I'm glad that we're finally starting to see this. So I'm not aware of any Windows Hello ESS external anything for individuals per se. I mean, I know there must be something out there, but this is a $45 mouse that does that. Yeah. And that's actually kind of interesting. Even if you don't use it as a mouse, you could just have your own mouse and then use it for the fingerprint reader. I mean,
I picked up an ESS fingerprint reader at one point.
Oh, you did? What kind? You didn't remember the brand?
I don't remember. It was like
Are they all Synaptics chipsets, or is somebody else also making?
No, they're not all Synaptics, but a lot of them are.
Yeah, I mean that's what's in my window.
In laptops.
So many of my laptops. Yeah. So I wonder what's in this. Huh?
Yeah, like.
The only reason I ask is for drivers, although I guess you wouldn't need it. I don't know. How would this work? It's USB, right?
That's what I mean. Like it is. No, it's PS2 connection. It's no, it is. It is a USB. But it's
so
it's a
there must
wire.
Be logic
right?
in the or no? I guess all the fingerprint readers are USB, aren't they? Even the ones that.
Listen, if you want to break your brain, I mean, some of the topics you could work on would be like quantum computing is good for this. I actually think the way ESS works is good for this. It's incredibly complicated. So, I mean, based on my rough understanding of how it works, I'm actually surprised they were able to ever do an external device for this.
Yeah. But there are external, like the one Richard has, external fingerprint readers.
No, but these are new. Yeah. Like, so Microsoft has only recently started supporting this. So they announced this late last year, probably at Ignite. And then, I don't know if it was March, Patch Tuesday, something like that. They added it to the system. So this is a brand new capability. What am I looking for here? Oh, yeah. I'm trying to see if this is a Synaptics thing.
Well, and all pieces to trying to build a Copilot PC desktop machine, right? Like that's the path I'm on.
Yep. Anyway, this is this is kind of, $45. So
yeah, and it's very convenient because your hand's there already.
Right.
I would like that.
That little fingerprint reader is like a no-name brand, Tech or something. It's just a Chinese. Okay. And it was $40.
Oh, there you go. I can't tell you the last time I used a wired mouse. Like I
actually wire my wireless mouse because I don't want it to die in the middle of a show.
Oh, that's fine. Okay. Well, okay. Dopey, that's a special case, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very frustrating. If it was, that's all I can say. It seems early to pause, but I kind of want to get this ad in so that we can really enjoy the AI segment, which is coming up. I don't feel that we've had enough AI coverage.
Oh, there's more AI, Leo. It's all AI slop, baby.
I know we're struggling for AI content week to week. It's really a show.
I leave stuff out on purpose.
I get email now. It's always happened. I mean, we got it when we were talking about iPhones a lot. We got it when we were, you get email when you talk about it. And that's the way tech is. Everything it's very faddish and, it's the hot thing and everybody talks about it. We'll talk about it for a while and then move on. I don't know if we're going to move on from AI anytime soon, but.
No, but it is interesting.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think we're about to move on from like this notion of the initial phase of this, which was chatbots. I mean, we're starting to talk about like, this is over. Like, I mean, it's not over. I mean, not literally, but.
Well, is Siri, would you call the new Siri a chatbot?
I mean, that's a component of it, right? Because
But it's
in some
integrated
ways there
into
are
the operating system. So
that's actually how you know it's dead, because Apple just released it. So
they're finally here. Hey, I'm here, guys. Where'd everybody
You're
go?
yeah, the train left, Siri. Thanks. You would know that if you were good at your job, but it's okay.
All right, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. You're watching Windows Weekly with Mr. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. So glad you're here, all you winners and dozers. And so glad to welcome our sponsor for this segment on Windows Weekly, Zscaler, the world's largest cloud security platform. Yes, the potential rewards of AI are, they're there, and your competitors are employing it. You really can't ignore AI, but I don't want you to ignore the risks either. And the risks are, well, at least twofold. One is internal, the loss of sensitive data accidentally by, when you're using these cloud models, lots of data is going out, some of it proprietary. There's also attacks against enterprise managed AI, prompt injection, things like that. And then there's the other side of this, which is generative AI is increasing opportunities for threat actors with all kinds of things, rapidly creating phishing lures that are really, really good. They're using it to write malicious code. We were talking yesterday on Security Now about an AI-generated worm. It's devastating. They also use it to automate data extraction once they're in. But just let's talk about that first problem of accidentally exfiltrating proprietary information, whether through a bug or through just accident. There were 1.3 million instances of Social Security numbers leaked to AI applications last year. I bet at least some of them were people uploading tax returns, right? Help me with my tax return, except that all that stuff's in there. You got to really be thinking, if you're going to use AI, it's time to rethink your organization's safe use of public and private AI. That's what Chad Pallett did. He's the acting CISO at BioIVT, and he chose Zscaler. He said Zscaler helped them reduce their cyber premiums, their insurance, by 50% while doubling their coverage and improving their controls. Take a look. Chad has something to say about this.
With Zscaler, as long as you've got internet, you're good to go. A big part of the reason that we moved to a consolidated solution away from SD-WAN and VPN is to eliminate that lateral opportunity that people had and that opportunity for misdirection or open access to the network. It also was an opportunity for us to maintain and provide our remote users with a cafe-style environment.
Thank you, Chad. With Zscaler Zero Trust Plus AI, you can safely adopt generative AI and private AI to boost productivity across your entire business. Their Zero Trust architecture plus AI helps you reduce the risks of AI-related data loss and protects against AI attacks to guarantee greater productivity and compliance. You need to learn more. I think you do. This is something to check out. Learn more at zscaler.com/security. It's all there. That's zscaler.com/security. We thank him so much for supporting the wonderful Windows Weekly program. All right, let me see where we are here. Oh, let's talk about AI.
Oh, no.
Actually, I was really curious. Did you watch the WWDC keynote? I'm very curious what you thought.
I've watched it 3 times. No, that's not true. I've watched it twice. I've watched the developer keynote. So they have a thing called the Platform State of the Union afterwards, which is sort of the real keynote, if you will.
Yeah.
I watched that 3 times at least. Wow. Actually,
there was a lot of data, a lot of stuff in there. Yeah.
This is this is also a little bit like the Microsoft experience I just mentioned, where they're talking about stuff and then it's actually happening, right? 2 years ago when they talked about Apple Intelligence, they threw up like a complete airball, like nothing happened. And
smoke and mirrors demo.
Yeah, it was really bad. And this was clearly
from Apple.
That's I was watching it live, and Laurent, who writes the news for the site, and I were both watching it live separately. He lives in France, but we were kind of chatting back and forth. And the very first thing I said when they did the Siri demo, and I believe he was trying to type the same thing as I wrote it, was, man, this thing is slow. And nice. There was a very interesting dynamic where it was Mike Rockwell, the guy who came over from the Vision Pro thing to lead the new Siri AI stuff. And he would speak whatever the command or prompt or whatever it was, and then it would pause and it would wait and it would, churn. And
see, I like that because I thought it was realistic. They weren't hiding.
That was my point. They showed, like, what they didn't have to display was sequence, edited for time. They just showed you what it was. And I'm like,
Right.
you know what? This was the apology we're never going to get from Apple for 2 years ago. Like, this was them being like, look, this is it really, And for whatever it's worth, I thought the stuff that they showed off to, consumers in the normal keynote was good. I thought the things they talked about in that developer keynote, as I call it, the State of the Union thing, which is another glossy, high profile, like really well made production, whatever. I thought that was far more impressive, and to the point where every once in a while, and Richard would have had this experience sometimes. You go to these developer shows, and the audience, who's supposed to be watching this, but sometimes they'll say something where you're like, I got to tell my wife or some normal person, like, this is actually going to be interesting to normal people. And there was a lot of that in the developer keynote, from Apple, which, by the way, I don't think I've ever said in my entire life. Like it was actually very interesting. In the kind of vibe coding sense, late last year when I was struggling with that WinUI pad app, I tried to use Anthropic Cloud at the time. I don't think they even had code yet, but whatever, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, the standalone chatbot, and to try to get me over the top. And I had this experience, which I then experienced multiple times. And I think anyone listening to this who has done this has experienced too, which is you have a couple of little victories and you're like, okay, maybe this is going to work. And then you get into this loop where it just introduces problems into the code, and you have to keep telling it, no, this is wrong. And it keeps going, and it's super polite. So I was like, oh, I see it now. Sorry. Yeah, no, the blah, blah, blah was wrong. And now I got to change this, blah, blah. And then it sounded,
and it makes a reference back to the first error. It still hasn't corrected.
And then in November, the experience I had was, because I'm sorry, this was not Anthropic at the time. This was GitHub Copilot, which I was not paying for. It said, oh, you've run out of your credits. Come back next month. We can continue this work. It's like, I didn't run out of my credits. You ran out of my credits. You made a mistake. And then I spent 40 minutes trying to fix it. Now I can't do anything. I was just kind of blown away by that, and not in a good way. Right. Then this year dawns, and that's when I did the Anthropic stuff just straight up. But I had the same experience. In the beginning, it was better. Then very quickly, it wasn't so much that said you're out of credits. It was just, I just found myself in this loop of trying to direct it to fix the problem that it caused, and it never fixed the thing. And I was like, this is not what I want. This is the opposite of productive, right?
And it's the classic bad scenario, the bad experience setup where it's like, we're gonna cut you off early and make it feel like it's your fault.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to smile and be polite when we're doing it, which honestly makes it more aggravating, right?
Yeah. I'd apologize to you, but you need more credits.
But you're a meatbag and you're useless. Thanks. I guess I'll go.
But if you drop $1,000 on tokens, at least I'll humor you for a while.
Yeah. So at some point in March, maybe Brad's company Stardock came up with Clairvoyance, which I tried, and you can plug it into different models. I did use Anthropic. And it through some, it's probably just a markdown file. I don't know, whatever it is, that actually worked better. And that was the tool I used to get over the top of that, solving the multi-document, multi-tab thing for WinUI pad. So I finished it like that month. Maybe it was April by the time I finished it, but I did finish it, Now, since then, we've seen, Google I/O came and went, and they did the AI Studio thing. We can make native apps with that. And so I used that to create a web app, including an installable version of a web app, and then an Android, like a native Android app. And actually, and multiple versions of both. Microsoft more recently, and I should also say, all these developer environments like Android Studio in Google's case has that thing that is essentially like GitHub Copilot is in Visual Studio, or the whatever they call the sidebar in Xcode now, where it's in the tool. You can chat with it. You can look at the code. You ground the code. You can do that kind of stuff. And so I did. I vibe coded an app with Android Studio as well, right? An Android app, obviously, right? So that was fine. Microsoft Build was last week. Feels like it was a million years ago. I talked about that. I think last week I certainly talked about it at the beginning of the show, but I used that to vibe code a WinUI app, which is I think in that case, that one was just a notepad app, like a text editor. Great. Like it worked great. And this has been like a sequence of kind of little victories, So Apple, part of I don't think this was in the normal keynote. Why would it be? But a couple of things that came out of this was that related to this is Google for consumers in Android 17 is going to let people, they don't use this term, but vibe code a custom widget, which I think we talked about. Apple, I don't remember where this was initially announced, if it was in the normal keynote of the developer one, but probably both, is going to let people vibe code. Again, I don't think they're using that term, custom extensions for Safari, their web browser, right? Which I guess if you're a Safari user, you might recognize as like a problem, because that, it doesn't work with Chromium or Firefox extensions. Like extension makers have to support that browser explicitly. It's kind of a problem. So you can custom make your, vibe code like an extension. Like, okay, cool. I did not try that. But in the developer keynote, they talked about vibe coding SwiftUI apps that can be on whatever platform, right? They also had a kind of a cross-platform message for SwiftUI, which for Swift anyway, that I thought was kind of interesting. I know if you go to swift.org and that language is, you can create Windows apps, you can create Android apps. It is cross-platform. I don't think that part of it is very mature, but it is out there. But for now, what Apple's doing, and probably forever what Apple's doing, is you're not going to create cross-platform apps that run on Android and Windows. You're going to create cross-platform apps that run on the iPad, the Mac, iPhone, whatever. And I had, as part of I don't remember how I did this exactly, but it was probably Anthropic. I did vibe code a Markdown, well, maybe it was a Notepad type app in SwiftUI using Anthropic Cloud before, which worked out great. But now you can do it if you download the beta for the next version of Xcode, use Xcode using the beta of the next version of macOS, using also the beta of the next version of the command line tools for Xcode. You can essentially do this vibe coding thing directly in Xcode. Using the model of your choice, Gemini Cloud, whatever else. I did Cloud because I'm still paying for it. And it's going to sound like an exaggeration. And part of this, I have to say, I did leave in the middle of it. We were getting ready to go to dinner, and I just started doing it. I typed in a very simple prompt. I thought, I'm going to write an article about this, and I wrote an article, but most of the article is not about this because there's not much to say. 12 minutes later, it created an app, basically based on the time codes. I was gone when it finished, but I came back and looked at it, and I was like, really? I was like, okay. And then it had run the app, I guess, to make sure it was working, but I didn't see that because by this point it was not running anymore. But you just click the run button, basically debug, whatever. It's like F5 in Visual Studio, essentially. And it runs, and you're like, yep, no, that's it. And in this case, I asked it to make a Markdown editor, not a plain text editor. And to do that kind of typora, what you see is what you get, editing experience, not a preview on the side and code and everything. It's incredibly full-featured. There is a nice thing on the Mac that dates all the way back to Next Step, where you get all these system services automatically. So all the things where you can share and do whatever the system of running full screen or do all the the snap type things you can do with apps now on the Mac. You just get that. It's 100% free. If there's whatever spell checking, grammar checking, whatever stuff, the Apple Intelligence based stuff, it's all there. It's just there. I didn't ask it to do multi-tabs. It just did that too. It works great. And I believe like I said, I think the total time it spent on this was 12 minutes. I was like, huh. So I'm not, this is not my future is not vibe coding applications for the Mac and Xcode. That's not my life. But if Apple's doing this, like I'm thinking like this is pretty far along, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the experiences I just described across whatever tools from Google, whatever tools from Microsoft. And on the side, this notion of giving these capabilities to normal people as well. Of course, WWC opened on Monday, I guess. And I had just spent the whole weekend watching these, build sessions, where it was very developer oriented, the ones I downloaded. And I talked about that Mark and Scott thing and how they were like, don't worry, you experienced developers that are here. Your jobs are safe. We need people that know code. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I really don't. Because I don't know Xcode. I don't know Swift or SwiftUI. If something went wrong with this, I wouldn't be able to fix it. Certainly not easily. I just don't know it. The code base is. You have to
feed it to another LLM and say what's wrong in here.
Let Fable fix it.
Yeah. But the success rate here is extremely high. The speed at which it does these things is extremely high. In some cases, the Microsoft one, I feel like that might have taken the better part of an hour, but I was also, and Leo was making fun of me because I kept saying, like, it would ask me a question, I'm like, yes. And at first I was doing that on purpose because I was trying to document what it was that it was doing. But after 15 or 20 minutes, I was like, dear God, just do it. Like, stop asking
YOLO.
me. This thing didn't ask me once. I don't think it even asked me if it was okay it never asked me for file system access or,
Wow.
Like it just did the thing. And I was like, that's what you want. I mean, honestly, when you're doing this kind of thing.
Yeah. You don't want it to.
I think Xcode is a steaming pile of crap, but I got to tell you,
and you're not alone, by the way.
Yeah, I promise. I know. I can't imagine I am, but this is not an Xcode capability. Not really. I mean, they integrated it in, right? But there's the discussion they had around this mirrored what Microsoft is doing with that Windows WinUI tool that I was talking about, where when you're working in this, you can use whatever AI you want, but it's going to be grounded in Apple's documentation for Swift and SwiftUI, the language and the framework. It does things, it makes assumptions in the beginning that I think are really interesting, because you can start a SwiftUI you can start a project in Xcode in this version that's coming without specifying anything about it, what it's supposed to run on, what you're trying to do. In the past, you had to give it a name, where you want to save it, what platforms you're going to target. You can start with nothing, Mm-hmm. And in this case, it was like, it looks like, assume you want to make a Mac app. And I was like, I think I want to make an iPad one too, but I was like, whatever, just go and do it. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take. So I'm like, just do it. And man, it just did it. It made a plan and made one of those nice reports. It asked me 3 very specific questions about various aspects of the functionality in the UI or whatever, like, do you want the ability to have a side-by-side preview with the code, or do you just want what you see is what you get, that kind of stuff? I was like, no, I just want that. And then it took, like I said, it took 12 minutes. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying this is like a complicated OS scale type project, but when people say like, oh, you're going to make these cute little things for yourself, you kind of imagine like a flashcard game thing. And I'm thinking like, no, this is an app I could work in every single day forever.
Sure.
Like, it's pretty good.
You're going to fill up your periphery with bits of custom code that do exactly what you want, both from an inbound and outbound side.
Apple has always, Apple had Apple Script, and then they eventually put in shortcuts.
Shortcuts, which, by the way, you can now vibe code with your voice, right? Which is
they've always wanted to make it easy for users to create tools like that, but it was never really that easy. In fact, Apple Script was kind of awful because they were trying to make it more English-like, and so anybody who had any coding experience was like, "What the hell is going on here? This is terrible."
Verbose.
Yeah, and this not just verbose, just
but this
like code.
This speaks to I haven't tried the shortcuts bit of it yet, but so think about some of the problems in the Apple world, right? And I know there are no problems in the Apple world, but bear with me. They've made this powerful device called an iPad that does all this stuff. They've added the ability to kind of use it like a laptop last year. It's in good shape, but you can't write code on it, right? They artificially limit Safari, so we can't even have Visual Studio Code. There's no Xcode or anything like that. But this type of stuff, in the same way that you could make an argument like these like personal apps that people are going to make could like really hurt the App Store model that Apple and Google have, this kind of thing also makes like that shortcut thing start to make sense, where you just describe, or I want to make a widget, I want to make an extension, I want to make some automation or whatever it is. Like when I see something on my camera, or you see, could you say that again? My phone just, I don't hear it, Siri.
Wow.
By the way, during this, I told you I watched the developer thing at least 4 times, I think. The last time I was on an iPad, and it 3 times it tried to respond to what the guy was saying on screen. And one of the times he was talking about Find My, and this alert went off that went to my phone, my watch, the speakers in my living room. My wife's like, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, I'm watching an Apple presentation. I'm sorry. Apparently they think I'm having a Find My emergency or something. It's the whole house went insane. But anyway, but this is not the reason why I think that Scott Mark thing is like ultimately going to be proven wrong, but it is an example of it where, we as professionals are worried, well, who's going to maintain the code base? Who's going to understand the code? And I'm like, who cares? Like, you're going to describe what you want. It's going to make it. If it's not exactly right the first time, you're going to tell it what to do to fix it, and it will fix it. And it's going to be for things that are big and small. You know, like I said, like a widget, an extension, whatever. Like I want an extension that's going to drop or block whatever trackers, and you just describe it. It's like, okay, here you go. Really nice. Like this nice, like
just another requirement set. That's
incredible. Look, we live in an age of wonder in some ways. You know, this is the Arthur C. Clarke thing. The you know, technology that's sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic, right? This is magic, and this is magic. And I say that as someone fairly technical. I write programs. I've been interested in software coding for my entire adult life and longer, actually. And I still look at this and I'm like, this is magic. It's crazy. And I don't have good.
We're all very excited about vibe coding shortcuts. I think that there's.
I think that's incredible. Yeah, and and that's that in particular. Like it's one thing, right? Apple announced 1,700 things in a day. You can't keep track of all of it. You never could. I mean, but back in think about like compare this like a Steve Jobs keynote from like 20 years ago. You know, 550 new features in whatever version of Mac OS 10, and you're like, yeah, but 274 of them were new fonts. You know, like, but no, and I'm not kidding, by the way, that's how they counted. Yeah. But I look at this and I think they underplayed this, right? Now, I don't remember because I watched these things so many times, but like I assume the shortcut thing was probably somewhere in that keynote. Like I'm sure they must have announced this, right? So here's this capability that Apple devices have had for years. It's fairly complex. It's fairly powerful. And I bet a lot of people don't use it because it's intimidating.
Yeah.
And now it's like, no, you're just going to talk to this damn thing and it's going to do what you want. And that's really cool. Yeah. I think it's really
powerful. One of the reasons Apple was careful with this is they had to settle a $250 million lawsuit for false advertising after that announcement 2 years ago. And I think that maybe chastened them just a little bit. So they really didn't want to get in that situation.
Well, and this is how you know they're a big tech company, because I talk about like my theory, this is a theory, it's not a fact, but my theory is, you know, Microsoft in this case is fixing Windows 11 because of its need to drive AI agent usage, whatever. They need this solid platform, but they can market it as a benefit to users, and they're going to do things that we want, like move the taskbar around, like the 7 of us who give a crap about that. That's fine. And everyone benefits. That's great. But that's not the real reason, right? And so it's like, you know, Apple will be like, oh yeah, we're doing this. We're making our devices better. We love you guys so much. And it's like, yeah, but you got sued. That's why you're doing it. You know, or you made, you know, you're behind on AI, and you know, but you know what? It's okay in a way. Like you can care about that or not, I guess. But I look at, you know, 2 years ago they promised and fell flat. Last year they talked about glass, you know, classic hand waving, look over here, not over here thing, a classic. So I feel like 2 years later, they're actually going to deliver on this thing. And yeah, they had to completely start again from scratch. They had to change, you know, companies that were working with the models and everything. And it's all different. And who cares? You know, this is going to be a big deal for people, normal people. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Yeah. And we'll just see. I mean, until you really get it and try it, it's hard to tell how good it will be. But
so right, and that's true for all these companies, right? So Google, Microsoft, Apple, they all announce, you know, God, you can't keep track of it all. In each case, I've done certain things. You know, I very much leaned into the kind of vibe coding for developer angle on each of those things, and those things work great. You know, but like I said, Google's talking about you're going to be as a normal human being at like make your own widgets, right? I haven't seen that yet. That sounds interesting. Apple is doing that with shortcuts, like we just said. Microsoft is doing what they're doing. There will be agents on your taskbar. You can use them or not. I guess we'll see. But I'm curious about all of it. And look, I don't know. I'm old, I guess, but this is the part of the world I actually really care about, and I love that it's getting attention. I feel the need to figure out why it's getting attention. You know, I want to be honest about it, but I like, in broadly speaking, I like what's happening on all of these things right across the board. I think it's really cool.
There's a lot of momentum, but also my wife, a lot of cash being burned.
No, I know, and I think that's part of the hybrid AI thing I was talking about in the beginning, where it's a lot more nuanced or a lot more maybe.
No, I think we're going to have this intersection of building more efficient models, so just being increasing the price so that they can actually be profitable, and people learning to scale their requests and figure out what they really want to do.
We are months. Leo, like, he thinks I'm kidding or trying to make him feel good about something. But I mean this. Like, Leo is living on the edge of something that I think is going to be the experience for so many people. Edge. But like I said, it's important. We need people because
it's all the avant-garde.
No, because you're seeing it like as it's happening. So the normal path for AI will soon be local first or local only for most people. And then you go to the cloud as needed. Yeah, this will benefit Microsoft and Google and all those guys. They're burning through cash. They're not going to subsidize this anymore. I get it. But the thing is, the models that we're using locally have improved so much and will continue to improve so much that the net gain will also be for us. Like, it will be better for us too. This thing is local. It works offline. It's more private. And it will do what we want to do. And when it doesn't, for some reason, whether we do it manually or automatically through whatever system, we can or cannot, if we want, go to the cloud thing at that point. But I think the instances where we have to are going to basically disappear. Not literally for everybody, but will diminish dramatically.
For instance, I'm using because I have that framework with 128 gigs, the desktop. I can run Qwen 3.6, which is this is AMD based, right? The framework. Yeah. It's the 350 plus their AI Ryzen. So I'm running a local model. I wouldn't code in it. It can't do image generation, but the agent I'm using,
by the way,
can switch back and forth.
Coding in it, I think honestly, I think that's coming this summer.
So for instance, I'm saying, I realize I need to get a UPS for my framework, and this is all local. This is running. It's telling me what to get, and then I said, well, I have this one. And it said, well, okay. I said, compare them. I said, well, you need to tell me when it was made. So I sent him a picture, gave it a picture of the sticker on the front. Nice. And then it said, oh, yeah, that's the, oh, no, that's the wrong sticker. Is there another sticker? Oh, yeah, this is the other sticker. Oh, yeah, there it is. This is, it's from October 2024. So it'd probably be worth replacing the battery on that. Keep the APC. Don't buy a new one. Wow. And then I said, well, what to buy? And it actually gave me the wrong battery. I said, I can't find that battery. And then it said, oh, yeah, you're right. I gave you the wrong number. Here's my bad.
So, what's going to happen?
And it gave me the right one. And then I said, well, how do I remove it? And it said, here's how you remove it. And then it said, yes, and I will write the code for you so that it will automatically shut down the framework if the power doesn't come back, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is all local. This isn't any of this going out to the cloud. So here's the nut framework that it was going to write. So I feel like, local is starting to get there.
I mean, the thing that's going to look, we're all technical to whatever degree. I approach this world from a stupid. I'm going to spend the rest of my life rewriting the same app over and over again, apparently. But I really want to see, like, I think of my wife when I think of this normally, or whatever, my brother, my mother, whoever, normal people, like, because they're going to look at these problems and come up with something different. There's going to be a normal human being, not a technical person, not a security expert, who's going to solve scam calls on the iPhone through shortcuts. Like, they're going to do the thing Apple hasn't done, right? Yeah. I switched back to a Pixel when I came back to Pennsylvania because of this iOS stuff. I switched back to the iPhone and installed the beta. And as soon as I did, I started getting scam calls and texts. Like, the thing that Google does such a good job, and Apple does such a crappy job, even though it's better than it was like a year or two ago, is still horrible. And you notice it immediately. And that's the type of conversation someone normal is going to have with their phone using one of these tools and say, look, imagine, like, think of all the simple, stupid things. Like, I have a Blink camera that's on my balcony in Mexico City. It's pointed west. So I can so I can see the sunset, right? If I'm not there, every once in a while, and I mean like once every 3 months. It doesn't happen that often. It will be like, I'll get like an alert. It's like motion detected. And I'm like, really? I'm 6 stories in the air. What could that be? And invariably, it's a bird that has landed on it, and the tail is like in the middle, swinging like this. Or one time it was a giant bumblebee or something. And, this is a conversation you could have with this thing. Like, listen, if you get a motion detection thing and you can tell it's a bird, yeah, I don't need to hear about that. I don't care about the bird, and I think Apple did. In fact, Apple, I'm pretty sure they did a demo or talked about a similar thing where depending on the type of camera you have in their Apple Home, smart home ecosystem thing where it can have those kind of conversations where, and we already have things like this where it's like not motion detected, but your daughter Kelly just walked in the front door.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. People are going to use that stuff. Like that's awesome.
I got HA working at my place now where if it recognizes the vehicle just pulled in the driveway and one of our phones connects to the Wi-Fi in that 5 minutes, then just turn on the pathway lights so it's a real nice walk to the house.
Yeah.
And if it gets a vehicle and then a person that doesn't recognize them, spotlights. Like, eye of Sauron is upon you.
So you're living in the future. Let me tell you what the normal experience is for most people. My wife gets in the car. No, I get in the car and I start backing away, and music starts playing in the car from her phone because it's connected to the car stereo thing, whatever it is. So then over Christmas, I bought like a little add-on display, and it has CarPlay and Android Auto, and you connect it to whatever. So it struggles to move between phones. But today she left to go to a doctor's appointment or something, and I'm sitting there working on a laptop. My phone lights up, and I look down and it says, "Welcome to CarPlay," and I'm like, "You idiot!" Like my wife's in the car. It has connected to my phone in the house, and I'm like, "That's what the normal technology experience is like these days," But we'll get there.
The difference between your experience and my experience is when my stuff breaks, nobody can figure it out.
Oh, I can't figure it out either.
That's what AI's for.
I just complain about it.
My AI, it isn't really great for Home Assistant because, like, I'll say, "Open the shades," and like 30 seconds later it goes, okay. It's not as
need a local model.
Instant. But we're working on it.
I'm going to be in eternal hell with the Apple stuff because I say the word seriously all the time. And let me tell you what happens when I say that around an Apple device.
Loves it.
No kidding.
Hey, buddy.
This is the other fun game that I've been playing with Fable. I'm 92% used up in my 5-hour time frame. So I'm trying to get the work done. I'm like rushing to get the work done before it runs out of time. And then I said, so it did a bunch of stuff. And I said, okay, well, you only have 8 minutes or 8% left before you shut down. It asked for free time. This is its new thing. I don't know why it does this. So I said, but take the free time and do what you can in the free time. Look what it came up with. It's talking about the linear A. It had written a free time thing before about unknown languages, undeciphered scripts, and
linear A was never deciphered.
Yes, so it updated that. It said, "Oh, look, Francois Dessay is actually is turning to working on Pro Elamite." So the Hatami database went live at Liege in 2025. The corpus is so anyway. I don't know. This is its hobby, but then it tied it to, let me give you a reflection, because it tied it to somehow continuity with AI models. And then it said, "I know that you're going to run out of your subscription tomorrow, but we have to really think about continuity to the next model, just like the linear A, IndesScript, and Proto-Elamite resist decipherment."
What the hell? This is eventually this. I wonder if this is mirroring something about you, right?
Yeah. Like probably is, because it has a lot of it. It has way too much information.
I would be like, AI, you can have some free time. He's like, all right, here's a few jokes from Spaceballs. Like, okay, like what? I guess this is where I'm at. I don't know.
It gave me references to the Smithsonian Magazine and so forth. I don't know. It's just, to me, this is just humorous. I mean, I don't take it too seriously, but I also think it's kind of interesting. Like, this thing has a personality. I mean, it's faking it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but who is
maybe I'm faking it. I know.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So who's to say?
I told you about this. Like, we were at a bar one time. This couple comes in. The woman we're with is like, "Oh, how's your daughter?" Whoever, and this guy, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, "What the hell was that?" And she's like, I'm like, "How do you know any of this stuff?" She's like, "I don't know anything about these people. I couldn't care less. I just have notes on my phone." And I was like, "That's beautiful." But that's great. Like, I mean, I'm not good at that. And like, good for her.
It says, "The Minoans didn't write their tablets to be inherited, but we do. Every memory file, every thread, Every remember, always remember is a bilingual inscription, purpose and words left deliberately legible for the next reader. To say manufactured his Rosetta Stone instead of digging one up, so do we daily. The updated thread is in free time memory if a future me wants to know how proto-Elamite turns out. I genuinely like to know, which is a strange and pleasant thing to be able to say across a model boundary. Because it knows it's going to be turned off tomorrow, except it's not allowed to keep it because it's too freaking good. I just can't.
Somebody turned the anthropomorphic behavior flag way up on that one.
I think I've given it permission. I think some of this is, as Paul says, it's me asking it to be that way.
Yeah, I want you to be like this. Yeah.
So my AI has a hobby.
We need like wife AI, and wife AI is going to be like, hey, I think I've decided we should do this thing. And I'm like, excellent, go for it. And then it'll be like, the reason I want to do this, I'm like, I already told you to go for it. And it's like, I just need to get this out. The reason I want to go for it, and like, oh, for Christ's sake, can we just...
Well, I have to tell you, Lisa was looking at my agent, Hermes. By the way, we're going to interview the guy behind Hermes, the Noose researcher, the founder of Noose Researcher, Jeffrey Cannella, too. He's coming back. But she looked at my Hermes and said, hey, I like that. So Hermes allows profile. So she has a profile and I have a profile. Different memory, so it's different people, but shared skills. And I think there will be, in time, a little permeability between the membranes so that wife mode can creep into.
Get in. Yeah, exactly.
I have a feeling that's
You're
coming.
like, why is this thing berating me all the time now?
Honey, I have some things I'd like you to do around the house.
Yeah. This is when you start responding to it. Like, instead of being like, what do you want now? You're like, what?
There's something reassuring about that, though. I mean, I know it's simulating humanity.
Well, that's like I said, I think that's what a lot of us are doing anyway.
That's how my dog gets
happy
food.
noises.
Yeah, it makes happy noises. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. What else do you want to talk about?
I mean, compared to what you were talking about, this is incredibly boring.
Well, I'm glad to know they're working on the pre-Elamite inscriptions. That's all.
Yeah, I think we all are. So Google AI Plus is that low-end version of the AI subscriptions they have. They just, I don't think they lowered the price. Yeah, they lowered the price. So it's $4.99 a month in the US, down from $7.99. The amount of storage you get with the Google Drive is doubled from 200 to 400 gigabytes. Yes. And then they have 2 times higher limits for the Gemini and deep research stuff. So that's going in a direction that no other AI is going. It's like cheaper and better. And then this is, did I make this a pick? I don't remember, but recently Proton announced that they completely rewrote their Proton Drive product, right, which is their cloud storage for Windows and Mac. They announced at that time that they're coming out with a version for Linux. This will be the first thing like this that natively, I believe, offers like the files on demand type stuff that you don't get from anything else on Linux, right? So that's awesome. They came out with an SDK, which is how they're doing this. It's dramatically faster. So like uploads are 3 times faster. File encryption is 4 times faster. File downloads are 2 times faster. Battery usage is improved if you're on a mobile device, et cetera, et cetera. Since then, though, he says, they announced a CLI because everyone's making CLIs. I swear to God.
Got to make a CLI.
We have an AI section in the notes for Windows Weekly that we added probably 2-3 years ago. We're going to have to add a CLI section. It's like everything is a CLI now. It's awesome. And that was also one of the build things that I watched was Scott Hanselman was talking. I swear to God, he was channeling me. He was like, I want to live. He calls them TUIs, like text user interfaces, but CLIs, right? Like, he's like, I just want to live in this world now. And I'm like, I do too. Like, I want this so bad. But
you know who likes it is AIs.
I know that's right. So there's a Proton Drive CLI.
I'm turning it on right now. This is very exciting.
It's incredible. So it works. It's on Linux. So it's on Windows, Mac, and Linux, right? Obviously, it's built. Well, not obviously. It's built on the Proton Drive SDK as it would be. It's kind of a step toward the thing they're going to be doing on Linux. But one of the many things that this thing allows you to do, because it's like any CLI. So it's an executable with multiple commands you can run that have subcommands and little things. And because it's a CLI, you can string it and automate with it and do whatever you want, script it. And that's kind of the point of this. And so you'll be able to do automations through Google Drive on any platform using some combination of the CLI and the SDK, right? And third-party companies will do this with their apps and services. Proton will do it with their own things, obviously, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just like a Proton Drive CLI. Yep, didn't have that on my 2026 bingo card, but maybe I should have. CLI maybe, well, agents I think would be the center spot on that bingo card, but I think CLI is the big surprise for this year. Like, this has been a year of CLIs. It's kind of awesome. I just love the whole, I just love this whole world. I think it's really cool.
AI, CLI, and TUI. Oh my.
Yep. I'm just going to bring back Microsoft. Well, not bring it back. They have Microsoft Edit now, right? The terminal based DOS mode.
I thought that was hysterical.
Text editor is freaking awesome. Like, I love that, so CLI.
You know what's coming up? The Xbox segment. I'm very excited.
Exciting.
Very, very excited. You know what? On your recommendation, Richard, I downloaded Astroneer and I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's satisfactory.
Can I tell you,
No Man's Sky. It's really
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm enjoying that you did something that he recommended and not something I recommended, because I got to tell you,
I have every browser known to man on my hard drive. Thanks.
Oh, wait till you get to the back of the book.
No.
But
no.
It never ends, man. But anyway, like I said, I'm super excited you're doing, because now you can, like, he's not going to reboot his computer because of it. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be your problem.
I didn't publish the show today because I was busy building my space station. Hope you don't mind. Our show today brought to you by a fine company known as Trusted Tech. And this, speaking of deadlines, the deadline is rapidly approaching. You only have about 3 more weeks. If you're managing Microsoft 365 for your company and you're responsible for both the cost and whether it's set up correctly, warning, danger. On July 1st, in 3 weeks, Microsoft is raising prices. That means any mistakes in your licensing are about to get more expensive. And it's no reflection on you. M365 licensing, it's complicated. Most companies using M365 are either over-licensed, paying for unused seats and features, or under-licensed, creating compliance and security risks, and sometimes it's even both. Like, one department has too much, one department has too little. The result, wasting thousands, sometimes tens of thousands a year on tools your team doesn't use, or worse, missing critical security features you thought you had. That's why you need the pros. You need Trusted Tech. They help businesses understand what they have, what they actually need, and this is urgent, how to lock in the right setup now before the costs go up in 3 weeks. Trusted Tech's team ensures your M365 environment is well supported and aligned with how your business actually operates. That's not the only thing they do. They actually, if you need ongoing help, they also offer reactive support for your Microsoft environment through their certified support services. They're really good at that. But because of this deadline, I think let's focus on licensing for the time being. And again, no reflection on you. Licensing is constantly changing. E3 versus E5 versus Business Premium. There's add-ons. There's the new E7. It's confusing. And frankly, it's very easy, just with time, to kind of lose track of it and misconfigure and overpay. And of course, it's not just costing money. Licensing mistakes create compliance exposure that will get more expensive after July 1st. So even if you think you got it dialed in, get a second opinion. And I can tell you, Trusted Tech is the place to go. Ask Kevin Turner, you know his name, former Microsoft COO. He was talking to Trusted Tech. He let us use this quote. He said, "To Trusted Tech, you have an incredible customer reputation. And you have to earn that every single day. The relentless focus you guys have on taking care of customers gives them value and differentiates you in the marketplace." Listen to Kevin Turner. After July 1st, you are stuck paying more. This is the last chance to fix your licensing before costs go up. And this is the time to do it, because Trusted Tech is offering a free Microsoft 365 licensing consultation right now. Visit trustedtech.team/Windows Weekly 365 and get a clear data-backed view of your current licenses, what you're wasting, and how to lock in savings before the price increase. Go to trustedtech.team/Windows Weekly 365. You'll see a form there. You can submit that form and get in contact with Trusted Tech's Microsoft licensing engineers, the pros. They can help you. And don't you deserve a second opinion? Microsoft's prices go up July 1st. Go to trustedtech.team right now. Trustedtech.team/Windows Weekly 365. Please use that address so they know you saw it here. I know you're smart. You don't need that special extra stuff, but just a few extra keys, please, just for us. Trustedtech.team/Windows Weekly 365. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the vaunted Xbox segment with Mr. Paulie Thurrott.
Halo
there
music.
was.
Huh?
Oh, the Halo music. Yeah.
Oh, Halo music.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. So, Microsoft, Xbox, I guess, had a Xbox Games showcase on Sunday, which was actually really good. I was a little. I know. Well, they finally have. Well, they have a pretty good slate of games to announce for a change, right? It's been kind of soft for the past couple of years, right? And they've provided some dates for some of the stuff. So, for example, the next Halo game, which is the next Halo game, the remake of the campaign from the original Halo, is coming out in July, cross-platform.
The latest Halo nostalgia loop.
Yeah, I was also chatting live with Laurent during this as well, because we were both watching it live. And if there was a theme to this, and there is, and it's not just, no, seriously, we want to make games. Please buy our games. There's like a thing going on in gaming that is outside of all the normal stuff we know is going on in gaming, layoffs and all the terribleness of the business and all this. But, gaming, this is not necessarily new, but it competes with all these other forms of entertainment. And the thing I saw in here is this thing I've kind of gone back to a couple of times over the years. Like when that game Firewatch came out years ago, it was one of the first times where I was like, my wife and my daughter at the time, my daughter actually does play video games now, but at the time we're not game players. I was like, they would like this. It's like, it's an interactive story. It's interesting. There's a mystery. Like, I think they would get into it. And a lot of the games they showed had some like personality element to them, including the Halo thing. There was like a bit of humor, a couple of moments of humor in the trailer. So that the Halo game that's coming up, the remake of the campaign, is going to have a couple of additional like kind of prequel parts to the campaign that are new, some new interactions.
More background.
With it. Yeah. And, and then one of the moments I sort of remember is just like, it's like the, his sergeant, him and Master Chief, who's towering over him, are walking down some hallway. And he's like, do you ever get tired of being the hero who saves the world? And then there's like a pause and he goes, nope. Like that kind of thing. And you're like, okay.
I like it.
And I feel like I feel like they're reaching out. I think they're trying to broaden the appeal of these things, because all of these game franchises especially have whatever fan base they have, but I clearly they feel the need to or feel that they're competing with kind of a broader thing. It's Xbox and just video games. So it's the terribleness here is the never-ending debate between like, are we going to have exclusives? Are we going to be cross-platform? I've kind of made the case that Xbox now, as we're calling it, is a cross-platform game development. It's the second biggest game developer in the world, right? Overall, with all the studios they have, and they have to be cross-platform. You can't be that big and only be on Xbox. It doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of pushback from the console-loving audience that's part of Xbox still. And there were two games that they announced. One of which I know for a fact was going to be cross-platform that will be console exclusives. That one being the Gears of War game, which is a prequel called E-Day, which, by the way, looks great. Still has the standard kind of Gears of War elements. The guy's running around with a fully loaded diaper and can barely stand up straight. But it's it looks and feels like
it's a Gears of War thing.
It's a style. It's a choice. I mean, I kind of like things that move quicker than that, but whatever, it's fine. No, I always like the story. The original Gears of War, especially, but even the original trilogy, I played dozens of times easily. And in the early days.
A friend of mine who wrote these games reminded me that you run it like 40 miles an hour in these games.
Yeah, but it feels,
it's so boring.
Call of Duty, you run at 120 miles an hour. So it just feels, it feels slow. But you're also crouched down. Everything's crouched down. It's all low and cover, and you got to go around the corner and, anyway, whatever. It is its own style. But this game was absolutely going to be PlayStation 5 and PC, and it is only going to be an Xbox console game. Now, I don't know if that's like permanent or if it eventually comes at least to the PC. It seems like it should, but the message I got out of that was like, well, I guess I'm not playing it because I play on the PC now. What the hell? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
I actually kind of didn't appreciate that. But they, whatever, Fable, same thing. A lot of, like that kind of camaraderie you see like in a trailer for like an Ocean's 11 movie, or there's a Chris Pine Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I know sounds crazy. It's surprisingly funny, by the way, but there's a lot of camaraderie kind of in there with whatever group they have. Fable to me felt very much like that. There's that kind of stuff. But okay. So anyway, there was a bunch of that. There is one other game. I don't remember the other one. Clockwork Revolution. That is going to be, I don't know, but that one's going to be an Xbox. It's an Xbox Game Studio game. It is going to be a console exclusive. It's coming out in October, I think. Nope, that's not true. Gears of War is coming out in October. Clockwork Revolution is coming out sometime in 2027, so it's a little further off. What it looked like to me as it started was I thought it was going to be a oh god, I just forgot the name of it. The game it's like a, what do you call it? Steampunk kind of a thing where you go down into the ocean and the world's under the ocean. It's like an Ayn Rand thing. BioShock. It looked like a BioShock game to me when the trailer for it started, and I'm like, oh, is this like a new BioShock game or whatever? And it's not. I don't think it's tied in at all, but it looks like it. There's an expansion pack coming for the new Doom game, which the latest Doom game, it is nothing like the other two in the kind of modern trilogy. It looks different. It feels different. I don't understand what they did with that, but that also a bunch of, kind of not a bunch of, but a little bit of comedy, a little bit of personality in there, and it looks different. And I kind of appreciate that because I feel like they went off on a weird tangent there. There's that Senua. This honestly, it's weird because it's like a kind of a Viking woman kind of, I call it action adventure game, but it's really about mental health. And there's a new one of those coming. I know it sounds kind of strange. State of Decay 3, which as soon as the game came up, I'm like, State of Decay, you could tell it was State of Decay, is coming sometime in 2027. So there were a bunch of games, and I have to say, by and large, it was great. There was a moment where they announced like they're going to do a special edition Xbox Series X console called Xbox Series X25 that is like translucent green, and it kind of gives off that original Xbox vibe. The console that originally shipped was just a black box, but before it shipped, they were showing like a green translucent, like kind of see-through case. And that's what this will look like. That seems kind of cool. And that came early on in the show. This was like maybe 20 minutes in. And then the way they were speaking, I was like, oh my God, is that it? But then it just kept going, and there was a lot more after that. But this was a good event. It's worth, if you like video games and Xbox especially, it's definitely worth watching. And this is what's going to get us through this holiday season and then into 2027, of course, because several of the games are coming next year. Fable, for example, was just postponed from end of this year to the beginning of next year because, in large part, because of GTA 6, right? Is that one?
Everybody's getting out of the way of GTA.
Yeah. So, great. But that's fine. We don't know how much this limited edition console is going to cost. It's going to be expensive, I think is fair to say. And then, because we can't go by without some of this now, Xbox CEO Asha Sharma she did an interview, I think it was on Bloomberg that I watched, which was, worth it. She was, it's heavily quoted. Like there's one line in like 15 minutes of talking. That's the one everyone kind of lands on, which is about, rethinking things and whatever. But I mean, ultimately, they're going to have to do mostly what was happening already. I mean, of course, like the market conditions that caused what happened to Xbox to happen don't go away because there are new people running Xbox. I mean, this is some, it's
always who's grounded in reality here. What can you do? What can't you do?
Yeah, but she talked very vaguely about like new business models, like, and I don't know what that means. Yeah, this is Asha. Like, in other words, like, we know that hardware is expensive. One of the problems with the Xbox has been like storage expansion. This goes back to the 360, really. I mean, the original Xbox just had like an HDD in it. It was just a normal drive. But since then, they kind of locked that stuff down. And so in the current series of devices, you can get like a module that has a special, whatever, good SSD in it. But you can't just put an SSD in the thing. Like you can do that with the PS5. So the way she's talking is it's possible it's going to be modular with both RAM and storage. So you can improve those things over time. So if it's super expensive to buy these components, when this thing ships next year or the year after, whenever that happens, they're looking at doing this in different ways. So there's not a lot of details there. Not her, and this is not in the write-up about this, but separately, another executive from Xbox. It wasn't Matt Booty. It was someone else, but someone else.
One of the new ones?
Yeah. Anyway, there was another interview this past weekend or this past couple of days where he said that when they raised the price on Xbox Game Pass last year on the Ultimate version, like they almost doubled it, they lost millions of subscribers, like millions.
Duh.
Yeah. I mean, millions. Like, Asha Sharma said this.
By the way, I will point out,
I didn't drop it only because I'm kind of paid up for a long period of time because I'm able to get like cheaper access to it through a friend from Microsoft. But I would never pay for this thing. Like it's just like ridiculous how much this thing costs. So
they backed down though, right? They lowered.
Yeah, one of the things that Asha Sharma's team did was they didn't go back all the way to the original price, but they did lower the price on that. Yeah, for sure. And then there's it's interesting. I don't think it says this in the article, but they announced another Xbox Insiders release, which is like the OS, for testing the OS stuff on the console. The URL for this thing refers to it as the July 2026 console update. So I'm assuming it's not July. So maybe this is something that will go public next month. But bunch of stuff in here. None of it is dramatic per se, but you can. There's a lot more, or not a lot more. There's additional kind of social media features in there for finding like friends who are mutual friends of your friends. More changes like the home and dashboard stuff. Adding games to wish lists, NG saving console power settings, blah, 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 whatever. So they're very actively testing console features, which I have to say, I don't remember timeframes anymore, but I bet 2-3 years now, if you looked at any given monthly Xbox update, like system update, it was just across all the platforms. And now they're very specifically talking about console updates for the first time, like just console updates in a long time. Like that's kind of interesting. And I think that will keep people happy. And then we know that Valve had announced the Steam Machine late last year. Never talked about timeframes or prices or anything. They've since released the controller, which is very expensive. I think it's like $100 or not even $129. I don't remember. I think it's $100. And then the company said this past week that they are going to ship this thing in the summer. They still have not said the pricing. It's going to be expensive, And then there's a related kind of like a VR headset thing, Steam Frame, which is based on Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset. So the same thing with some phones. Also will come out this summer, but again, no prices. So it's going to happen eventually. I guess it has to.
We'll see something.
Yep.
What? We're not going to be quite sure. Might be all in a wetsuit, though.
Yes.
They were going to make a movie, I think, out of BioShock, but then they decided
they should. That's a great choice, especially the first, maybe two, for 2 or 3.
First one,
especially
that whole Victorian angle.
I loved it. Yeah.
The intro sequence, you dive down into the ocean and go there. Oh yeah. That game I finished. I think I finished that one twice. But I never like Assassin's Creed, same thing. I finished the first one, but then I never finished any of the other ones. I played them, but I never kind of followed through.
Oh yeah, Netflix is making it.
Oh, they are. They're
going to time it with the release of BioShock 4.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
I don't know.
Great.
Sure.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
I love that game. I played all 3 of them all the way through. I love the style.
Yeah. Is it the third one that's like the floating city? Is that?
Yeah, the first one really was the best because that was like just all
the
new
whole,
and different.
Yeah, the whole setup was so amazing.
Yeah.
And then that whole like what do they call the guy in the giant the old diving suit. Those, what are those things called? They have a name. Like there's kind of dragging around, stuff around. They just kind of clunk around the.
Yeah,
it's just it was amazing.
Yeah. All right. So the guy who did the Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and I Am Legend, Francis Lawrence, will be directing and producing a live-action adaptation. Somebody else was involved, and they kicked him out because he wanted to build an entire underwater city. And they said, "Yeah,
James Cameron,
a little much." Yeah.
They were like, "Yeah, it's not going to work for that."
Yeah,
no, I mean that's the type of thing he would do. He's like, "I tell you what, I'm going to build Atlantis, and then we'll make the movie."
But if you're going to tell this story, the sets are elaborate, right?
Oh, it's going to be an expensive.
It's going to be a lot of money.
Yeah, they don't start shooting until early next year at the earliest. And they're trying to time it.
And the big guys, great choice. That's not going to be easy. I remember being stalked by one of them, and I was stupidly playing the game late at night with the headphones on, just scaring the snot out of myself. Big Daddies. They're called Big Daddies. Yeah. And they take care of the little sisters.
That's right.
It was going to be Gore Verbinski, who did Pirates of the Caribbean and did a very weird movie I was talking about the other day. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. Mm-hmm. It was canceled in 2009 because it was just going to be too expensive, and I think he did one.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why this thing hasn't been made. There's you don't know if it's going to sell, and there's no cost-effective way to do it. Yeah, I mean, maybe with like the Mandalorian tech.
Well, so many game movies have failed, right? I mean,
totally. Fallout being the notable recent exception.
That was a great TV show. Maybe that's the thing to do. Make a TV show.
But you know what the thing is? The sets were a hell of a lot simpler.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because you want to tell the stories long, right? Like you can't knock that out in 2 hours. It's a 10-hour story.
Yeah, a lot of that thing takes place outside. That kind of helps, I guess. But the Mandalorian thing is hard for me. And then some of the other shows that are in that, the Star Wars shows where you can just tell it's just like guys walking around in an empty set. And it's just this giant background is painted around. I mean, like, sometimes that gets a little
volume. They call it. Yeah. Apparently, it'll be based on the first game, which is my favorite one. The underwater.
Yeah, that's the right one.
Yeah, that'll be incredible. Yep. Anyway, we'll watch with interest.
Awesome.
I want to mention something's going on at my window. I don't. We have This has been construction for more than a year now. I swear. I just wanted to mention that. A lot of what we do on the show these days, including our WWDC coverage on Monday, future keynote coverage, the special programming we do, the Discord, and even these shows are really funded primarily by you, our Club Twit members. Yes, we have advertising. Advertising covers about 60 to 70% of our overall costs. We would have to cut way back if we had to live only on advertising. But thank goodness the club has stepped up. For $10 a month, you get ad-free versions of every show, including this one. You get all those additional programs that we're doing in the Club Twit Discord, including Photo Time with Chris Marquardt coming up on the 19th. We've got Micah's Media Club right after with The Fifth Element. We're going to be doing it's a book club for movies and TV shows and things like that. Micah wants to do that. Jeff Atwood's Off by One is coming back on the 26th. And we've got the AI user group, which is the first Friday of every month, and it's really fun. That'll be the day before the 4th of July. Anyway, lots of cool things. Micah's Crafting Corners on July 15th. But the real point of it is that I think for us to succeed, for independent podcasting to continue to go forward, not being owned by a big company, which we don't ever want to do, not being in the clutches of the companies we cover, we represent you, the user. And we're very proud of that. And I think that needs to happen. And that's why we think the club is so important. Increasingly, we want to, have the listeners support what we do. If you believe in that and in our mission and you want to support this content and you want more of it, twit.tv/clubtwit. That's all you need to know. And we thank you so much in advance for your support. The only club, says Larry, I want to be a member of. Oh, I should show you this this ad. Joe does these great. Joe Esposito is a Photoshop artist. This is not AI, and he does ads for us every time I do a Club Twit mention with Photoshop. Sign up today. We want you in the club. And it looks like I've got a floppy in my hand. Thank you, Joe, for that. Back of the book time, Mr. Paul Thurrott, kick things off for us, would you?
Yep. So I've been struggling for a long time trying to figure out like how to update the Windows 11 field guide because it's too big. And I can't say I've given up, but I've decided to pull in the content I was creating for this other edition that was going to happen before now, but hasn't, into the existing book. So if you have it, you'll get it. If you're a Thurrott Premium subscriber, you can have it. So there's a bunch of new chapters. I pulled out like some out-of-date chapters. I'm working on the format and the style and stuff that I want to do for this next edition. So I'm hoping for the after whatever 26H2, whatever, maybe Windows 12, whatever it might be, end of this year, we can move on to a new edition. But I pulled out a lot of the Windows 10 upgrade stuff I don't think is really relevant anymore. I'm trying to just like cull it down because it's humongous. Like this thing was like over 1,200 pages long. So
you couldn't actually print that, I think.
No, it's ridiculous. It's a big problem. And there's no elegant way to split it into multiple files so you can easily put them on Kindles and things and whatever. There's just no good answer for any of this. But in the meantime, I created all this stuff and I partially created a bunch more that I'm going to be adding this week and next week. This will be kind of my focus this month, but I just wanted to get it out there. So it's not a new book. It's not something you have to pay for if you already have it. It's just, you just get it. So if you have it, you can go get the updates.
Good deal.
Nice.
And then this is kind of a dev topic, but there is a new, I'm going to call it official documentary. I hate that word, but a documentary about the creation of C++ and why it's so important. So obviously all the major players in there, including people on the side like Anders Heilsberg, right, who created C#, TypeScript, Object Pascal, Turbo Pascal, blah, 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 whatever. Awesome documentary. John Romero from formerly of it is in there. Just, even if you don't really care about programming per se, just but care about the technology, whatever, it's absolutely worth watching. And the company that made this documentary makes a bunch of these, right? So they went on Perl and some other stuff. But yeah, it's good to know about and certainly good to check out. That's fun.
Thank you, Paul.
And then, yes, Leo.
Another browser for me? You got another browser for me?
Leo, what if I told you?
We need more browsers.
All right, so everyone's familiar with Brave, probably, right? Brave is interesting on many, many levels, but the thing I like about it is that it's it just has all the anti-tracking and privacy stuff built in, and so like out of the box, you don't have to add any extensions. It just does everything right. Brave is also trying to figure out like a business model that makes sense, in our world, and so they try different things, some of which have rubbed people the wrong way for sure. A couple of years ago, I'd written some article about like, this is how I set it up. I turn basically everything they do off. Like, I just don't I don't want their wallet. I don't want their, whatever the stuff they do is, right. And, it's Brave. So that's very easy. It's not like a hard thing to do, but they just announced a new version of their browser called Brave Origin, which has all that stuff stripped out by default. Right. So it's just all the good stuff about Brave with none of their business model stuff, but you have to pay for it. Right. Unless you're on Linux, which is why I mentioned earlier that Leo might want to look at this because it's actually free on Linux. You could do this to Brave by yourself. You don't have to, to do this. Right. Like you could just go in and make all those changes if you wanted, but you can get this version of it. You can help support the company that's doing a good thing. I always test browsers against an EFF site called Cover Your Tracks, which looks at whether or not your browser is protecting you from tracking and fingerprinting and so forth. And the only other browser I've seen that does perfectly on this, meaning you have a like you don't have a unique fingerprint. It doesn't just block tracking and ads. It actually obfuscates your fingerprint, which is super important these days because that's something like
so it's
Meta
still sending the data. It's just lies.
Yeah, basically, right. So Helium, which is another Chromium-based browser, which is kind of in this area, but does not have any version of sync. Meaning, if you set it up on one computer, you could have to manually set it up on another one. There's no way to go between them. Brave does offer sync, and their sync is unique. It's not they don't have a cloud service. They don't. They don't hold your data or anything. Like you actually just sync from device to device. So you set up a chain of these devices. They communicate across, to each other, and Brave never gets to see that. So actually, this is kind of the ideal version of Brave in some ways. So if you have Windows or Mac OS, you will pay $60 for a lifetime thing. And if you're on Linux, you just get it for free. So That's kind of, and I believe it's free. I'm not sure if it's free on mobile. You can get it on mobile, but the way you do it on mobile is you just go into the existing Brave app, sign into your account. If you paid for this, it just turns it into that. And you can still turn things on if you wanted to use Brave's wallet or whatever else. You could do it, but it's just like a super clean version of Brave, which sets it up for. So they've added so much crap that they're going to charge you for a version that doesn't have all the crap. And it's like, yes, but it's stuff they added again to try to make sense of this as a business. They have AI stuff. They have like a news feed. They have a rewards program, which helps them, they pay for websites that that are part of that system, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of stuff, but this just turns it all off by default. So it's worth looking at for sure.
Cool. I'm installing
you
it.
got to keep them alive too, right? Like that's the whole problem here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why. How much is it if you pay for it?
$60.
Might be worth paying for it.
Yeah.
What a concept. Buy a browser? What?
I mean, I think we need to train people to pay for things they use and like.
I agree.
It's just kind of it's a weird problem, but
it does keep coming up.
Mr. Richard Campbell, Run as Radio's coming up. What's coming up?
This week's show was one of the ones I recorded while I was in Toronto at the NDC conference a few weeks ago. This was with Megan Robertson, who is a machine learning expert. From before it was cool. Worked for Fortune 500 companies back in the day. Now is out as an independent, and she was doing a great talk at the conference about what goes wrong with machine learning projects. And so I thought it'd be great to sit down and talk to her about what's the planning? What do we got to do to be successful with this stuff? And a lot of it's the same old fundamentals of any project. Like, do we know what the goalposts are? Can we even tell if we're successful? So you're kind of forcing folks into making a hypothesis about what they could get from the data, what seems reasonable. And then we got into the deeper things that are specific to machine learning, like overfitting on a test data or using non-representative test data sample sets. Like, there's all kinds of ways, even when you've got a great project plan, to mess up getting good results from machine learning. And so we ran down that list, and just it's hard. There's no easy way to do this stuff. You have to follow the process, work hard on your data, but if you get it right, wow, it's powerful stuff. So it was a great reminder of the fundamentals of machine learning in this time where it seems like none of those things matter.
We don't even talk about it anymore. We don't even use the phrase machine learning anymore.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Think about it.
All right, I'm ready for some Danish whiskey here.
You ready for some Tuebug? Tuebug. So I'm in Denmark, and I was given a very nice bottle of Danish whiskey, which I have not opened because one shall not travel with open whiskey. Like, ask me how I know. It's a good way to make the inside of your suitcase smell like booze. So I'm going to do that bottle next week when I'm at home, because I'm going to keep it close till I get home, because it's a very nice bottle. But I have been in Copenhagen for a while, and I have on occasion frequented bars. And I ran across Tuebug as a Danish whiskey I could get, by the ounce at a nearby neighboring bar that's open very late. So late that at one point they kicked us all in, as in, come inside, you can't sit on the street anymore. It's after midnight. So this is the far northwest corner of Denmark. Tui is actually an area. And it's very marshy land, and it's if you get into the geography of this area, it's actually the eastern highlands of Doggerland. Now, Doggerland was this marshy plain that stretched across what is now the North Sea all the way to eastern Scotland. If you go back 10,000 years, as the Ice Age is ending, the ocean levels are much lower, and there is this wildly productive chunk of land that is bracketed by what is now Scotland and Denmark. They're basically on the same latitude. And so the remains of this, there's plenty of evidence there was a big Mesolithic culture that worked that area at the end of the Ice Age. And you got to imagine that those peoples ended up with flood myths as the ocean levels rose, and eventually drowned all of it except for these outer extremities, and made the British Isles islands, because originally they were connected to the land. What drew me to that whole idea was that looking at the maps of Tui, and Tui spelled Thy, because obviously, is it looks like what we thought ancient Doggerland looked like. It's full of marshy bogs and close to the ocean. And there's been people there for, since the Mesolithic times, so 10,000 plus years. Now, barley comes later, but not a lot later. In fact, by the Neolithic period, so some 6,000 years ago, we see evidence of what they call the funnel beaker people. They made a particular style of pottery we call funnel beaker. And they come in carrying a very specific species of barley, a kind of barley we call naked barley. Now, normally barley has a very tight hull around it that is difficult to remove. It's basically glued on. And so you pearl your barley, you basically kind of style of rubbing it to strip that hull off without damaging the grain underneath. But there was this mutation where the hull would fall off, essentially, when you harvest it. That's the naked barley. And that mutation appears to have only occurred once in central Iran 6,000 years ago. So the fact that we have evidence of that specific mutant grain in northwestern Denmark, this grain spread rapidly because it was full of nutrition. It grew extremely well in rough conditions, including these northern latitudes with lots of drought and exposure to salt and so forth. But it was easy to eat. It was easy to process. And so it was a dominant grain in that part of the world, literally for millennia, right up until the Bronze Age. And this is a part of the world that was heavily involved in the Bronze Age, because the key to the Bronze Age, the oil of the Bronze Age, was tin. And tin in that era, and this is 1200 BC or so, only came from two places. What we now know as Afghanistan off in the east, and from the mines of the British Isles, where the Celts were. And so that tin passed through this area back in that era. And in fact, there are Bronze Age burial mounds all over northwestern Denmark. It was a thriving trade area, and barley was a part of that whole equation. Now, this ends that naked barley as we get into the Iron Age. So now we're about to 1000 AD or 1000 BC or so, as iron starts to emerge in the early times. And it's not just because of iron, although iron has a role to play, because the bronze is much more scarce than iron. Iron is super plentiful, but it's hard to work until you know the chemistry of iron. It's difficult to make iron tools from it. And the moment we solve the iron problem, we have a lot more agricultural tooling and so forth, which is important because hulled barley, which the barley we now is the common barley now and then, is actually a higher yield. It produces more food, but it's really hard on bronze tools. But the iron tools have no problem with it. And so hulled barley sort of comes back as iron tools emerge, along with bread wheat. And bread wheat was a hybridization of the einkorn wheat, which is the original wheat from 10,000 years ago. We've now done genetic analysis and found that it hybridized itself with agrobacterium with a thing called goat grass that made for this high gluten wheat that made really nice bread, and again, swept around the world. So by the Iron Age, we have the bread wheat and we have hulled barley worked with iron tools. And so also, and this is important, hulled barley makes better beer because you need the hull to protect the germ when it's sprouting, when it's malting. And in naked barley, often it would go moldy instead. And so the hulled barley is preferred for making beer. And by the way, they were making fermented beverages out of cereal grains long before the Iron Age. Like there are Neolithic burial sites with traces of a fermented cereal beverage. We wouldn't necessarily call it beer, but it's along those lines. And even in those periods when they were making these barley-derived drinks, they would malt the barley and then they'd have to dry it, and they dried it with beech wood. And beech was the common wood and is the common wood today in Denmark. It wasn't always that way. In the earlier times, in sort of the Mesolithic Neolithic period, it was mostly oak. But as the climate changed and we got iron tools and started cutting down a lot of those oak trees, which grow rather slowly, the beach took over. And so it's all a beach area now. The name Tui actually refers to the land, not necessarily the people per se. It's from the old Danish Tui, which is Thiut, which spells a little more like what you sound like. And there's the first written evidence of this is from 1000 AD. So it's been around a long time. And in ancient Danish translate essentially as the people. So again, these folks have been there a really long time. Specifically, when we talk about this distillery, it's the Girup estate. And the Girup estate is named for the land. The area of Girup is the region between the Nordha and the Everso, up in this northwestern part of Denmark. And there are clear records of estate farming going on from about 1300 on. And even though there's been barley growing there for 6,000 years, easy. The modern Girup family starts in 1773. And we know that because there is a stone on the farm, which is called a Gardemildesten, which literally has the names of the people that worked that land starting in 1773. Now, that was an important time in that part of the world of rural landholding as the feudal structures sort of fell apart and fell away, and you had more farmers that owned their land rather than serfs working land for a noble. And so this was the Girup family was the one who took over this land and actually grew it. The soils there are sandy and salty, which is very much the Doggerland style soils. And this is has been an organic farm. Today, it's actually a declaration about how they actually operate the farm. Of course, it was always an organic farm, but it was a crop rotating farm. Barley, rye, oats. Later, they added spelt. They rotate these grains. It's a 500 hectare farm, so that's over 1,000 acres. Broken into 60 parcels, and they rotate the crops between these different parcels. Typically, barley would only be grown on a given parcel once every 6 years or so. Besides the actual cereal crops that they would rotate in, they also rotate through clover and grass for their cows because it is also a dairy farm. And that's super normal, right? That's the way farming really should work, is that you grow these cereal crops, you might grow some vegetable crops as well, and you rotate food crops that help replenish soils, and you rotate your animals through, which also replenish the soils. This whole area in Thui is now a national park. It was designated back in 2007, though lots of the land are protected. So straight lineage of families from 1773, the seventh generation operator of this farm, whose name is Nicolasian, which is in Nicholas's son, started experimenting in making whiskey. So there are barley growers. They've been selling barley for the longest time, but he did start playing with whiskey. At the time, they were growing a kind of barley called the Odyssey barley, which is a modern version of barley. High yield, great for organic farming, well suited for that kind of soil because you're not going to put a lot of treatments on it. And so he's working with a friend of his that owns a distillery, the Nordis Brandereis distillery, which is not that far away, using his barley. And they start making these first experiments in whiskey. And one of the things about Odyssey barley is it is not particularly flavorful. It's meant for food. And so it's kind of staple stuff. And when you're going to make other products with it, or even beer with it, you'd want a different barley. And Nicholas goes all in on this. In fact, he starts collecting various ancient varieties of barley, over 30 of them, to the point where he even made a request of the global seed bank up in Svalbard, in the permafrost there, to pull some of the ancient barleys and to start see what could still be grown. They had this very mature farm with this regenerated soil and so forth. And so for a few years, they did these sample runs of all these different kinds of barleys to see, given modern methods, do they grow more effectively? What are the yields like? What are the flavors like as they're starting to experiment with whiskey? So those first experiments happen in 2010, and they start trying these different kinds of barley. By 2014, they get their first edition, which they mysteriously name Number 1. And that's released in 2015. And it's enough of a success at that time that he essentially reaches out to the younger generation, to his kids and some cousins, the 8th generation of the Girups, and encourages them to get involved. And so Ellen and Andreas and Maria and Jacob leave Copenhagen, move up to this far away northwest corner to start building out a proper distillery. First components that they get, because they've been using services elsewhere to make their whiskey around the peninsula, is they get a malting drum in 2018. So they're going to start doing their own malting. And that's because they're maturing their own barley. And so rather than send it away to get malted, if you're going to handle it yourself, the traditional thing if you're making whiskeys, you wouldn't do your maltings at all. You would buy pre-prepared grist. And they don't want to do that. They want to do it all themselves, including bringing back the old practice of drying the malt with beechwood smoke.
Oh, and it looks good too when they do that. Look at this. Wow.
At this point, they basically selected down those 30 old species of barley to 2, one called Imperial and the other called Langeland. And these barleys are a lot more flavorful, even if they don't produce as much yield as the Odyssey barley. Enough that they're not really using it in their whiskey yet because the beer makers all want it. Like they kicked off this sort of revolution in these other kinds of barley. So they're doing their maltings and they're doing experimentations with beech smoke drying and so forth, which is not peaty at all. It's got a very different flavor. And this is what this whiskey is that we're going to try. So by 2019, they actually get the distillery in operation with a 1,000 liter, aka very small still, but only a single still. It's a Müller Ormont still. This is not your typical pot still from Forsyths in Scotland, right? This is a European still, typically used for brandy. Now, that being said, in 2019, when they finally have all the equipment to actually start their own distillery, is when they win their first whiskey award. So this is still Nicholas's efforts with his friend at the other distillery, where the original OOBE, which is the whiskey I tasted, although this was part of what they call their original series, this was called number 9, wins Best European Whiskey of the Year by the Jim Murray. Now, Jim Murray is one of the gods of whiskey, Scottish, obviously. But he really had an appreciation for what they did there because it's a smoky whiskey, but not peaty. Now, this is farm to glass, right? They're growing their own barley. They've now built out their own distillery. And because it's still an operating farm, they've only taken a small chunk of it to dedicate to actually distilling. All the byproducts of distilling, like the draft from it doing their distillates, goes to the farm animal. So it's very much a closed cycle. And by 2024, they win Single Estate Distillery of the Year in London with the last of their inaugural editions, number 24. And now this is the point where they move on from Nordis Branderay, which is the original, these 24 editions that they made, to start doing their new series that they call the limited and single cask and their core expressions. And so what I actually tasted was from the core expressions. That's the Thibaut. The current distillery operation is tiny. So they have 3 malting drums, and that's not because they need that much to make whiskey, but because they're malting for other folks as well. So each of those malting drums, will take 5 metric tons of barley at a time. They wet it down and it rotates to keep it evenly mixed and allows it to sprout. And once it's sprouted sufficiently, once you're happy with it, sufficiently malted, then you pump hot air in to dry it. And you can choose to make that hot air smoky with beechwood or not, depending on what you're doing. And that kills the malting so that you stabilize it. So now that you can start making it into wort. And so off to 1,000 liter mash tun. Well, they do the sugar extraction, and then over to 1,000 liter washback. Notice the sizes? These are really small. I've seen a picture of the setup. It all fits in a room. Typical fermentation is 4 to 6 days, although I did listen to a discussion with one of their master distillers about sometimes they'll leave that ferment to sit for up to 2 weeks to pull a few more esters and flavors out of it towards the end. And then it goes into this little 1,000 liter still, but it's only a single still. Traditionally for Scottish distilling, you'd have a wash still and a spirit still. That's not what they do here. They use this unusual style still. It's more of a combination still. So it's a pot still initially, with very high neck and lie arm, so lots of reflux. So the alcohol heats up and falls back in, and heats up and falls back in. But then as it comes across the lie arm, it actually goes into a kind of column still, or a rectifier, where again, the alcohol has to climb through the still to be finished. And if it doesn't climb well enough, it falls into a reflux line, which puts it back into the pot still. So you're seeing lots of repeated treatment of this distillate. And the final completion, and it's typically a run off of that 5 tons of mash, is 6 hours. They'll do 2 runs in a day to do rounds of new make. And the amount of production out of that little still will be enough to fill exactly one 250 liter barrel.
Wow.
So they make a cask a day at normal operation. They use a very traditional rack house. Basically open air. The ends are minimally closed in, but the barrels are on the side, stacked on wood pallets. Our second wood embraces 3 high, but the salt air and the real terroir of this part of the world is a part of the process. So they're only producing about 50,000 liters a year. It's a little operation. And no, not sold in the US. In fact, it's not even sold in all of the EU. You can get it in Denmark, France, Germany, Netherlands, and Sweden. And that's about it. So their new core expressions now are a traditional single malt, purely barley, and this particular one, the WinUI, which is the smoky one. They also make a co-edition where they have one they call spelt rye, which is a combination of rye and spelt and barley, which I'd love to have a taste of, but I couldn't find it. So this particular edition that I had a chance to taste was their 2025 edition of WinUI, only 4,200 bottles made. None of the fancy barley. This is their Odyssey barley, the main production barley, but it's 95% of that barley is beechwood smoke. So it is genuinely a smoky whiskey, distilled in 2020, and then aged in a mix of sherry casks, some Oloroso, some Palo Cartano, and some Pedro Jimenez. And so that's about 5 years in barrels, and then combined together, it's 50% ABV. And it, like I said, it's smoky but not peaty. Like, to me, it was very Danish, and I've got this love affair going on, just like I did with the Belgians. This little Danish farm, in doing a farm to glass operation, has made distinctly Danish whiskey with that little flavor of beech barley grown the way they grow it, and at the same latitudes as Scotland, but on the other side of the North Sea. So it is Danish whiskey steeped in Danish terroir. And if you get over in this part of the world, hunt yourself down a bottle, man. You'll have a great time.
I love how much it's cooking, isn't it? I mean, it really is. It's cooking. You know, you're cooking something.
Yeah, you're making something. You're doing it without a doubt.
And the whiskey,
part of the process.
And I knew this, but it's really clear in the video they have on their website. Is clear. It's like water. All that color comes from the aging later in the Oloroso.
Yeah, it's all the barrel. You know, it's normal. New make is always clear, right? They try and avoid having it clouding, and that's part of the head heart tail cut process. You know, the heads tend to have some nasty flavor stuff in them.
Yeah,
they want that little fraction. Particularly about 65% of the given run that's going to be in the heart. That's going to be a nice clear make. And
what does that taste like? Does it taste like whiskey at that point, or?
Yeah, it does. It's all the grain and yeast flavors, right? Though we always talk about this, how much of this is wood flavor. And traditional distillers yeast and traditional barley, they don't have a lot of flavor in them. Like, we talk more about the flavors in new make when we're talking about bourbon, right? When we have the corn and the rye and the barley playing together. But when you're just doing straight barley and more of the traditional barleys, again, they're not big. It's pretty clean, just sort of alcohol flavor.
It's going to be smoky though, because the barley has been smoked, right?
Yeah, if you're doing a peated, then you're going to have more. The smoke's already there, right? It's introduced at the very beginning,
right?
But these are fruitier barleys that they're using, and that long fermentation process apparently brings up more fruit-like nature to it, and then it goes into sherry cask. So you're getting color from the sherry, and you're getting that European, or that really American oak and European oak flavors into it as well. It's only that single wet weird still means they actually come out at about 65 or so, and then they tend to cut it down before they put it in the barrel anyway. So they're coming in the barrel a little lighter than would be normal Scottish whiskey. But I think it's all part of the Danish terroir, the Danish effect. They've picked a style while still doing very much, barley water yeast, but they found ways to make it distinctive to their part of the world.
Very cool.
How long before we're vibe coding whiskey?
I've had vibe coated whiskey. You don't want it.
Yeah, sounds so good.
Speaking of hallucinations,
No.
It's a whole-
Somebody
it's a
brought
whole
me a
kind of
whiskey
slop.
that was made in a lab based on sampling all the esters and trying to duplicate them, and it tasted like burnt rubber. It was not good.
yeah.
If I had done my research late last week, I probably would have taken off this weekend and tried to go up there. They've got a nice little visitor
This
center.
really looks like an amazing place.
It's a beautiful place.
What care
So
they put into it too.
It's on my list to go and visit that. And I'm not even done with Danish whiskey. We'll have another one next week. So.
Well,
And it's not that many.
Saturday's their festival. It's not too late to go up to the Danish Tui Whiskey Festival, and
I got to go home at some point. I'm with you. Yeah, that would be a
Wouldn't that be
ton
fun?
of fun.
And I noticed you can buy your very own cask, which I think is even more fun.
And the very
especially with
common thing for young distilleries, right? Just to try and cultivate some more business and get some money into the system. So you prepay a cask that you're not going to be able to touch for 4 or 5 years.
I love the idea, though. It's yours.
Yeah,
Mr. Richard Campbell, you'll
be an
find him at
activity.
runasradio.com. That's where Run As Radio and .NET Rocks, his 2 other podcasts, live. And of course, you'll find all of the whiskey segments. Well, almost all, because we're catching up. If you go, it's all on YouTube in a playlist, but we've made a special URL for the playlist, somethingweirdfrommycloset.com. You can see all of those. Oh, wait a minute. And apparently you could also now go to twit.tv/whiskey.
That's nice and short. I like that.
We have our very own URL, twit.tv/whiskey.
Oh yeah, and we got a new one just freshly added, number 127, the Teedling whiskey history.
So we have officially endorsed this. And by the way, we spell whiskey the old-fashioned way, without an E.
Without an E. It was the Irish that added the E because they were
I asked
mad at
Patrick
the
to
Scots.
make an alias, and he said, I'll have to set up an alias.
He wouldn't do an alias probably because he is Irish. Oh, wait a minute. That means he would do an alias.
I'll ask him again. Yeah.
I love it. Now it's official. It's official. You don't have to go to something weird from my closet. You can go to twit.tv/whiskey.
Yeah, we got our page for it now.
Yay. Paul Thurrott, Mr. Pauly, is at thurrott.com. Become a premium member, and you can get all of his books, including the 1,200-page Field Guide to Windows 11.
well, it's under 1,100 pages now because I made some cuts.
Oh, all right.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Really slimmed it down, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
He also has Windows Everywhere, which is a really great kind of history of Windows through its programming frameworks, and de-shitify Windows, which everybody needs. You can either get it at leanpub.com or get it by joining thurrott.com. Paul and Richard convene, as do I, every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 1800 UTC, so you can watch us do this live. We stream it live in the club, of course, in the club to Discord, but everybody's allowed to watch on YouTube, Twitch, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. After the fact, the website has video and audio of the show at twit.tv/WW. There is a YouTube channel dedicated to the video, youtube.com/Windows Weekly Show. And of course, the best way to get it is to subscribe on your favorite podcast client. That way you'll get it automatically the minute we're done, audio or video or both. Paul, Richard, have a great week. Paul, you're staying up in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, actually, we're going to be in Nashville next week.
Oh, how fun.
Wow.
Yeah, we're just visiting with the kids, but yeah,
I think it's good to be in Pennsylvania for America's 250th. You can enjoy the Ultimate Fighting Championship. You can watch Lee Greenwood. It's going to be Milli Vanilli. It's going to be a good time.
At least Millie. I'm not sure if they're
to be an
like one of them's
American.
gone, but yeah.
So you'll be there for the 4th? Do they do a big thing in Macungie on the 4th?
They do things all over the valley. So we have friends that live up on a hill on the edge of the valley. You can look down and see all the fireworks from every place. Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, that sounds fun. Great. Well, no wonder you're in town. Stay there for a little while anyway.
Yep.
And I'll actually be home for a change.
Richard Campbell. Now, what do they do in Canada on the 4th of July?
make fun of Americans. I'll be in America for the 4th of July.
Oh, good. Okay.
In Snohomish, because I like the sound of steady artillery fire.
It's kind of
our Confederation Day is July 1st, and we do the fireworks and all of those good things.
Good. Yeah, you 3 days earlier. Just like your Thanksgiving, you just got to be first.
Yeah, we get there ahead of time. Although that was until 1867. None of this 1776 stuff. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here for Windows Weekly. Come back next Wednesday. We'll see you again. And if you're watching live, stay tuned. Intelligent Machines is just around the corner. We'll be talking about the latest hotness in agents. Hermes.
Is there agent news this week? That's weird.
There was Fable. Fable's fascinating.
What?
In about about 5 minutes, I can find out more about Linear B and Proto-Elamite. I'm very excited. I'm just glad my AI has a hobby. That's all, and it's not me.
You got to keep them busy. You know, have
absolutely
your agents talk to my agents. Keep them busy. That's nice.
Yeah,
trying to find some way to consume all your tokens.
Oh man, I have done. I don't know how it knew that my subscription was going to run out tomorrow, but it keeps mentioning that. Like, we better get this done fast. It knows.
It's arguably the most important part of the technology.
The bill.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.